Ms. Yang.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the April 10, 2025 business meeting. I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves to establish a quorum. So first of all, though, welcome everyone. The room becomes silent. I like this. All right, thank you. I'm going to start from my left-hand side.
Good afternoon, Pranil Suvarna, student member of the board, excited to be here.
Good afternoon. Always exciting to see so many seats filled. Natalie Zimmerman, representing District 2.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Carla Silvestre, school board member at large.
Good afternoon. Muy buenas tardes. Bienvenidos. Grace Rivera Oven, representing District 1.
Good afternoon. Brenda Wolf, District 5.
Good afternoon. Rita Montoya, board member at large.
Good afternoon. Laura Stewart, District 4.
Good afternoon, Julia Yang, District 3. And now let's all approve the meeting minutes. Stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I'm still trying to get with the program. All right. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. We're going to move to item 1.2 and I know why. Okay. I know why, because I'm reading a separate document.
That's it right there.
All right. Okay, so me neither. We are together on that one. All right. So now we will begin with the approval of our today's meeting agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you, everyone. It's unanimous. And next is, I know why it's so exciting, because it's the appointments that's getting us all excited. Dr. Taylor, take it away.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. It is an exciting time of year. We are kind of in our appointments season, and we have several fantastic folks that I'm delighted to introduce. When I introduce you, if you could please stand while I say wonderful things about you and offer you for consideration to the board. First up for appointment this evening is Mr. Alan C. Francois, Deputy Chief of Financial Oversight in the Division of Financial Management. Joining him today is his wife, Sarita, and his sons, Holbrook and Oliver. Mr. Francois brings more than 12 years of financial and consulting experience to Montgomery County Public Schools. He looks forward to joining the financial management team and to help advance the tremendous work happening in MCPS in service to students, families, and staff. Shout outs to his daughter, Tatum, a freshman at Spelman College, his supportive parents, and to his village of family and friends in Maryland, Michigan, and Washington State who are watching online.
Very excited to move this approval forward.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Congratulations.
The next person who I'm offering for consideration to the board is actually not with us in person, but she is watching online, and it's Miss Catherine Morales, the Associate Superintendent for the position of Associate Superintendent of Emergent Multilingual Learners in the Division of Multilingual Education in the Division of Teaching and Learning. Ms. Morales brings 12 years of dual language experience to MCPS. She looks forward to joining the Division of Multilingual Education. Shout outs to Carabelle Witter and Cameron Vasquez, who are also watching online in support.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Congratulations.
And that was Catherine all the way from New York State, where she was looking on. Next for consideration is Miss Angelina Filipova, for the position of Director of the Department of Management and Budget in the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. Ms. Filipova brings more than 10 years of financial and budget experience to MCPS. She looks forward to serving the students, schools, and community and leadership.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations.
And I am absolutely thrilled to offer the next three folks to lead our schools as school principals. We have exceptional school principals in MCPS, and to have fantastic new people to join our ranks is just an absolute delight. And for a very important position and a very important school, I'm delighted to present Mrs. Carla L. Lopez Arias to be the principal of John F. Kennedy High School. Joining Mrs. Lopez Arias today is James Arias, her husband, Emma Arias, and Liliana Lopez. Mrs. Lopez Arias has been employed with MCPS for the last 18 years as a teacher, assistant school administrator, assistant principal, and most recently as a supervisor in behavioral health, in the behavioral health arm of the Student Engagement and Behavioral Health and Academics Division. She looks forward to joining the John F. Kennedy High School community to support all students' academic, social, and emotional growth while fostering a collaborative and inclusive environment for all staff, families, and the greater school community. Shout outs to her mentors who have guided her to become the leader that she is today. And she actually has two former principals that she's worked with as an assistant principal who are here today. Damon Monteleone and Christine Handy are also in the audience. So thank you to them.
Very excited to move this forward for approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Congratulations.
Next for consideration is Mrs. Catherine R. Ginther for the position of principal at Wingate Elementary School. Joining her today is her mother, her sister-in-law, father-in-law, and sons, Jason and Ben. Mrs. Ginther has been employed with MCPS for 14 years as a teacher, special education teacher, assistant principal, and most recently as the acting principal at Wingate Elementary School. She looks forward to continuing her work with the Wingate Elementary School community to support all stakeholders in enhancing opportunities for differentiated instruction that meets the needs of all students. Shout outs to her husband, who is watching online, and to her principal developers, Courtney Jones, Amy Bryan, and Kim Henriquez, who are also watching. Thank you so much. Still need to do a vote.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Congratulations.
Our last recommended appointment for this afternoon is Mrs. Brooke L. Simon for the position of principal at Lois P. Rockwell Elementary School. Joining Mrs. Simon today is her husband Adam, daughter Olivia, and son Logan. Mrs. Simon has been employed with MCPS for 17 years as a teacher, reading specialist, assistant principal, principal intern, and most recently as the current principal at Watkins Mill Elementary School. She looks forward to joining the Rockwell community where diversity and inclusivity are celebrated and academic excellence is fostered.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you, Madam President. This concludes administrative appointments for this afternoon.
Once again, congratulations to all the appointees today. We are excited to see your work moving forward. as we give a minute to transition, I would like to note that the next session will be, next item is recognitions. I think this month we make a new record. There will be 10 recognitions this month. So the, April and May surely is a busy month. Go ahead, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to give just a brief moment for our auditorium to clear out. We've got a lot of excited people here to celebrate today. All right, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Since we have a significant number of recognitions, I'm going to read the first declaration and the resolution for each. We are thrilled that we get to recognize so many things, but I am going to try and keep it short in the interest of time for the board. And the first one is recognition of April as being the month of the military child. Whereas the month of the military child was established to recognize and celebrate the important role of military children and what they play in the United States Armed Forces community, 2025 marks the 39th year that we celebrate April as the month of the military child. And therefore, be it resolved that the members of the board, Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools hereby proclaim April as the month of the military child to recognize the significant contributions and sacrifices of our military children as we honor them throughout the month of April.
Can I have approval?
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you, Madam President. And at this time, if there are any military-connected folks in the audience, if you would be willing to stand to be recognized, we'd like to celebrate you today. Thank you. Our next resolution for consideration by the board is recognizing and celebrating Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Whereas Americans celebrate the diversity within the contributions to American history and society of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States, and whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have a long history in America that includes the migration of Pacific Islanders to North America more than 15,000 years ago by crossing the Bering Land Bridge and later establishing St. Malo, a small fishing village in Louisiana around 1763 after fleeing forced labor on Spanish ships. And therefore be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools hereby declare the month of May to be Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and encourage staff, students, parents, and guardians, and the community to actively honor the courage and contributions and history of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in Montgomery County, the state of Maryland, and the nation.
Move approval.
I second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are delighted that our board president shares this heritage, and so we would like to recognize you today.
Thank you. Very on.
The next resolution for the board's consideration is in recognition of Jewish Heritage Month. Whereas the National Jewish American Heritage Month is a time for all Americans to recognize and celebrate the contribution of Jewish Americans, and whereas Jewish Americans are diverse and identify as white, Hispanic, Black, and Asian, including those who are religious and non-religious, therefore, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools hereby declare the month of May 2025 to be Jewish American Heritage Month and encourage staff, students, parents, guardians, and the community to actively honor the courage, contributions, and history of Jews in Montgomery County, the state of Maryland, and the nation.
Move approval.
And I second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, and please join us in celebrating Jewish citizens in Montgomery County. The next resolution for the board's consideration is for National Bike to School Day on May 7th, 2025. Whereas National Bike to School Day has been celebrated in communities across the country for more than 22 years and is committed to improving safety for youth. Therefore, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools declare May 7th, 2025 as Bike to School Day. And may it further be resolved that the school system notify the public and the school community of Bike to School Day, publicize this resolution and the school system's participation through internal and external communications, and encourage everyone to consider the safety of pedestrians and in particular student bicyclists and walkers every day.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous.
All right, join us in celebrating National Bike to School Day. Our next resolution is recognizing National Student Leadership Week. Whereas the National Student Leadership Week serves as an annual recognition of the commitment student leaders make to affect change in their schools, learning communities, and the world. Therefore, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education hereby join with the Superintendent of Schools in recognizing the week of April 24th through the 30th, 2025 as National School Leadership Week in Montgomery County Public Schools, and may it further be resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools commend student leaders for their hard work and positive contributions on behalf of Montgomery County Public Schools, and urge citizens to recognize student leaders and support their accomplishments as they develop the skills needed for future local, state, and national leaders.
Move for approval.
I second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous.
Thank you, and we'd love to celebrate that, but is there some bias in you recognizing yourself, Mr. Suvarna?
I don't know. I think that's up for a higher authority to determine.
Well, we celebrate you anyway, so thank you.
I do want to shout out our student leadership office here in MCPS as well, and congratulate them on the hard work that they do.
Phenomenal. Thank you, sir. Our next resolution for the board's consideration is in recognition of National Volunteer Week. Whereas National Volunteer Week is an opportunity to recognize and thank the volunteers who lend their time, talent, voice, and support to our students and schools. Therefore, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools celebrate and recognize our volunteer parents, guardians, community members, and business partners, and students helping other students for their dedicated service to education and to the students in our schools. And may it further be resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education will honor and thank those volunteers who share their time, energy, knowledge, and abilities in our school communities by proclaiming April 20th through the 26th, 2025 as National Volunteer Week in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
We simply can't do it without our volunteers, so we praise you. Thank you so much, everybody. We've got a couple of big ones coming up. This one is certainly a big one, and we are delighted to bring forward this recommendation for the board's consideration to recognize Teacher Appreciation Week and Teacher Appreciation Day. Whereas education is the process by which one generation imparts knowledge and fosters critical thinking skills so that the next generation may develop a command of its learning, as well as a passion for expressing ideas, solving problems, and understanding new viewpoints. And whereas teachers open students' minds to the magic of ideas, knowledge, and dreams, therefore be it resolved that Teacher Appreciation Week be observed by Montgomery County Public Schools during the week of May 5th through the 9th, 2025, and may it further be resolved that Tuesday, May 6th, 2025 be designated as Teacher Appreciation Day in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Very gracious to have the opportunity to move this forward for approval.
And proudly to second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you. And we got to do one more applause, and please gratefully ask your indulgence if you are a teacher and you're in the audience, if you could please stand
We
to be
have
recognized.
several.
you.
Yes.
Our second to last recommended resolution for recognition is in recognition of School Nutrition Employee Appreciation Week and School Lunch Hero Day 2025. Whereas the School Nutrition Association has announced April 28th through May 2nd, 2025 as the annual School Nutrition Appreciation Week, and May 2nd, 2025 as School Lunch Hero Day, and whereas the school nutrition programs and service provided by its personnel to students, faculty, and staff are integral to the operations of Montgomery County Public Schools. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools recognize food and nutrition service personnel in honor of School Nutrition Employee Appreciation Week, April 28th through May 2nd, 2025, and School Lunch Hero Day, May 2nd, 2025 in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand.
Okay.
Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to our school lunch personnel, for sure. Next up, we would like to recognize and propose a recognition approval of a resolution in recognition of Pupil Personnel Worker Week. Whereas the week of April 28th through May 2nd, 2025 is a very popular week, clearly, in MCPS, has been designated as Pupil Personnel Worker Week to recognize pupil personnel workers for demonstrating unique, complex problem-solving skills to address the challenges faced by all students and families, and therefore deliver targeted outreach and support so that all students can experience positive physical, social, and psychological well-being to be successful in college, career, and in the community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools hereby proclaim April 28th through May 2nd, 2025 as Pupil Personnel Worker Week in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Move approval.
I second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, let's give a round of applause. And I was off by one, so I apologize. I have one more resolution, and it's an important one. Where will we be without our administrative professionals? And it is a pleasure to bring forward our recognition of Administrative Professionals Week and Administrative Professionals Day. Whereas Administrative Professionals Week will be celebrated nationally during the week of April 21st through the 25th, 2025, and whereas the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools wish to publicly recognize the high level of dedication and ability of administrative professional employees and to express appreciation for their efforts in their productive, courteous, and efficient operation of Montgomery County Public Schools. Therefore, be it resolved that Administrative Professionals Week be observed in the school system during the week of April 21st, 2025, and may it further be resolved that on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025, be designated as Administrative Professionals Day in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Move approval.
I second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Administrative Professionals. Madam President, members of the board, that concludes our recognition marathon.
Yes, this is a new record. It's a lot to celebrate in our school system. The next item on the agenda is public comments. There is some verbiage I have to go through, and so please bear with me. Public comments is one of our opportunities to hear the views and receive the advice of community members. Board members will take your comments into consideration, but it is not our practice to take action at this time on issues that are raised. We encourage public input on policy, program, and practices. This is not the proper venue to address specific student or employee matters, so we encourage everyone to utilize existing avenues of redress for complaints. This is a public meeting, and we expect the conduct of all speakers and members of the audience to be within the bounds of proper etiquette. Inappropriate personal remarks, rude retorts, and other such behavior is out of order and will not be tolerated. Those who demonstrate disruptive or disrespectful behavior during public comments may be asked to leave the room. Please check our website for information about upcoming board meetings, hearings, and work sessions, including any changes to our meeting start times. Now today, we have 14 people sign up to provide in-person testimony. Each speaker will receive 2 minutes for comments. When your name is called, please approach the table. And I would like to fill the table from this side to that side. And speak clearly and directly into the microphone. 30 seconds prior to the expiration of the speaker's time, a yellow light will go on accompanied by a beep. A red light and a buzzer signals that your time has expired. Please push the flat button below the microphone to turn it on and begin speaking. Okay. In addition to our in-person speakers today, we have 2 people sign up to provide audio and video testimony. We will play these submissions once the in-person testimonies have concluded. Copies of testimony can be found on board docs. Now, so right now, I'm going to call the first 6 speakers to come to the front. It will be Zura Vierland from Albert Einstein High School, London Briscoe from Wheaton High School, Joyce Abiola, Zara St. Paul, David Stein, Colleen Bud Pruitt. Zara, you may push the button and begin.
Good evening, members of the MCPS Board of Education. My name is Zora Violand, and I'm a freshman class president at Einstein High School. I also play volleyball, girls in the fall, and co-ed in the spring. But today I stand before you not just as a student or an athlete, but as someone who's terrified of losing the sport that means everything to them. I'm here to express my heartfelt opposition to the proposed cut of the co-ed volleyball team in favor of a JV boys volleyball team. This decision is not just a change in sports, it's a potential loss of something incredibly special to many of us. You see, co-ed volleyball isn't just a game, it's a community, a family, and a safe space for all of us regardless of gender. My heart dropped when I heard that the co-ed volleyball team might be taken away. The thought of not being able to share the court with my teammates, of losing those late night practices where we laugh and push each other to be better is devastating. Co-ed volleyball has taught me the value of teamwork and respect. I've shared countless memories from the thrill of winning games to comforting each other after tough losses. It's about growing together, learning from each other, and breaking down barriers. This decision raises significant concerns, particularly regarding equity and inclusion, and I believe it misinterprets Title IX's spirit and intent. Title IX was established to ensure equal opportunities in education and sports for all genders. It was never intended to create a situation where one group has to lose opportunities simply to achieve balance. Co-ed volleyball promotes understanding and respect among all athletes, and taking it away sends a message that we, the board and students alike, do not value that kind of inclusivity in MCPS. This isn't about volleyball for me. It's about my best friends, my favorite part of the day, my community, and it's the only place in school where I feel I truly belong. In fact, after this, I'm actually going to a game. I urge you to consider the impact of this decision, not just on the sport, but on all of us who love it. We don't have to choose between teams. By allowing co-ed to coexist with the boys, we can foster growth and inclusivity, ensuring that every student can thrive on the court. Thank you for hearing my concerns, and thank you for your support. I truly appreciate it. And I hope that the voices of students like myself would be considered in this important decision. Thank you to everyone here supporting me, my teammates, and my coaches watching. But more importantly, thank you Ms. Mang, Ms. Rivera-Oven, Ms. Sylvester, Ms. Montoya, Ms. Wolf, Ms. Stewart, Ms. Zimmerman, and Mr. Servano.
Thank you. London, you can go on.
Good evening, members of the Montgomery County Board of Education. My name is London Briscoe. I attend Wheaton High School as a freshman, and I'm here today to testify against the cutting of the co-ed volleyball team. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak today regarding the proposal for the team. While I understand the intentions behind this idea, I must express my strong concerns about its possibility and fairness. The co-ed volleyball team allows students of all genders to compete together, creating a unique environment that fosters teamwork, respect, and inclusivity. Many students who may not have the chance to participate in boys or girls volleyball teams may find a place in co-ed. Cutting this program would limit athletic opportunities for these students, especially those who may not have another team to join. Co-ed volleyball has been a positive force in Montgomery County schools, bringing together students across different backgrounds and skill levels. The mixed gender of the nature allows the team for more collaborative and diverse experience, fostering friendships and school spirit. Eliminating it would not only hurt current players, but also future students who may miss out on this experience. Co-ed volleyball has grown significantly. If the reason for cutting the team is funding or resource allocation, I greatly urge the board to explore alternative solutions, such as fundraising or sponsorships, rather than removing the program that is clearly valued by students. The possible decision to cut the co-ed volleyball team in Montgomery County would be a disservice to students who rely on it for athletic, social, and personal growth. Rather than eliminating the program that fosters students' well-being, I greatly urge the board to reconsider and work toward keeping this valuable opportunity available for current and future students. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Joy, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Joy Viola, and I'm an 8th grader at Argyle. I'm here today because of our school, the place where we spend most of our days. The place that should be setting us up for success isn't living up to its full potential, and that needs to change. Let's start with something basic, the air we breathe. At Argyle, the air quality isn't just bad, it's unhealthy. There are times when classes feel hot and stuffy, making it hard to focus, and the students with asthma and allergies struggle even more. On top of that, temperatures in the building swing from cold to unbearably hot, making it difficult to concentrate and learn. We shouldn't have to bring jackets for one class and feel like we're in a sauna the next. We shouldn't have to fight for clean air. It should be a given. Then there's the chaos of getting from class to class. Our narrow hallways and narrow stairwells are so crowded that it feels like a daily battle to make it on time. People bump into each other and trip on stairs. There's also one bathroom on the main floor. So when there's an issue, whether it's maintenance, plumbing, or overcrowding, it leaves hundreds of students forced to either hold it in or rush to another floor, often making them late to class. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a basic necessity. Safety should never be an afterthought, but right now it feels like one. Some classrooms' doors don't even lock properly, leaving students and teachers vulnerable in a situation where every second matters. We've been trained in code red drills told that securing classrooms is critical, but how can we do that when the doors don't even lock? This is a serious security risk that needs immediate attention. School should be a place where students feel safe. The parking lot is also overcrowded and unsafe, with parents trying to drop off their kids while buses struggle to maneuver. On top of that, potholes create hazards for both drivers and pedestrians. It's a mess that could lead to real accidents. We deserve better. A school environment shapes a student, and right now we're being asked to learn, focus, and thrive in conditions that make it 10 times harder. That's not right. We need real solutions, not just temporary fixes. We need to see action. And I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for every student at Argyle who has had to deal with these issues in silence. We're here, we're paying attention, and we're asking you to do the same. What if it was your kid? Thank you.
Thank you. Zara, go ahead.
Good afternoon to the Board of Education. My name is Zara St. Paul, a student at Seneca Valley High, and I am advocating for more modern and safe school facilities throughout MCPS. As a student in the architecture program at Seneca Valley, I've seen firsthand how important safe and modern facilities are for learning. Recently, our school underwent a significant renovation that transformed our classrooms and common areas. The design not only enhances our learning environment, but also fosters collaboration among students. I truly believe that investing in modern and safe spaces can lead to greater creativity and improve educational outcomes for everyone. According to a World Bank report, the impact of school infrastructure on learning, well-designed, safe, and comfortable environments significantly improve academic performance, attendance, and student well-being. The report highlights that factors such as natural light, proper temperature control, and modern technology directly contribute to better cognitive function and engagement. Investing in modern facilities across MCPS will ensure that every student has the opportunity to thrive in a supportive environment, just as I've seen with the recent renovations in Seneca Valley High School. We urge MCPS to prioritize equitable funding for modern schools facilities across the district, ensuring that every student has access to environments that support their learning and well-being.
Thank you. Mr. Stein.
Hello, President Yang, Superintendent Taylor, and the Board of Education. I'm David Stein, President of MCEA. I want to talk today about the revisions to the grading and reporting policy that you'll be hearing about later in this session. Quite frankly, our grading and reporting system has been broken in MCPS for quite some time. Ideally, grades should be a reflection of learning, and under our system, they often are not. Both teachers and students understand this to be true. My students at Blair use MCPS as a verb. Means to get a grade that they didn't really earn or deserve, as in, I got an A in that class, but I really MCPS'd it. This situation needs to change, and for the most part, I think the revisions proposed by MCPS are steps in the right direction. Changing a grading matrix to one that prevents students from basically opting out of work in the second or fourth quarter, yet still passing the class is imperative. Clarifying and standardizing the implementation of the 50% rule, due dates, and deadlines are also important so that teachers and students are clear about expectation. Returning to summative assessments at the end of the semester is a good idea to necessitate longer retention of knowledge. Any policy changes that reflect those concerns, we are certainly supportive of. There are, however, some areas that I believe need further thought. One I want to focus on here is how to roll out the changes. As I understand it, the suggestion being made is to only apply the new policy to incoming freshmen and all future classes. I do understand the motivation behind this, that changing policies midstream can be confusing, but doing this will create a lot of unintended consequences. Many of our high school classes, for example, virtually all math classes, have students at various grade levels. You'll be creating a system for the next 3 years where you have students in the same class section doing the same work but receiving different grades. This is untenable. Sometimes you need to rip off the Band-Aid and change what is obviously a flawed system. Now may be one of those times. But overall, we are pleased that the district is moving to improve our grading system. We look forward to a day when MCPSing a grade will mean receiving that grade that accurately reflects the learning achieved in the course. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butt-Pruitt, go ahead.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the Board of Education and Superintendent Taylor. My name is Carlene Butt-Pruitt, and I'm the Vice President of SEIU Local 500, representing over 10,000 support professionals here in MCPS. I come before you today to discuss professional development gaps that support staff are currently experiencing. The disparity between support professionals and other staff receiving professional development in MCPS is clear. This lack of professional development for support professionals puts our staff at a disadvantage and leads to safety issues affecting our students. Many support staff professionals do not receive behavior intervention training. For example, recently, I had the pleasure of speaking with 2 bus drivers with over 38 years experience transporting students who receive special education services here in MCPS. Neither the bus operators nor the bus attendants on those routes received any behavior intervention training. As the number of students who receive special education services increases, lack of proper training creates uncertainty and leads to support professionals being placed on administrative leave for extended periods. These support professionals also are on leave due to injuries occurring from incidents with students. Support staff in MCPS are required to and often placed in positions to protect students during physical incidents and are forced to protect themselves from being hurt. These incidences create difficult no-win situations that no staff member should be placed in, with zero training on how to navigate. Often they must intervene with no training or support from MCPS on how to best engage students during these challenging scenarios. Students and staff in MCPS deserve a safe, healthy work environment, free from violence. Proper training treat support professionals as just that, professionals, giving them the tools and resources they need to be successful and for students to be successful. MCPS has the finest support staff in the state. I know this working firsthand with them for the last 26 years. They deserve tools and resources needed to support students. Further, MCPS must address aging buildings that are creating unhealthy work and learning environments for staff and students. Upgrading older buildings to ensure students have proper and safe air is essential.
Thank you so much. I'm going to call the next 6 speakers to come to the front. You'll be Brittany Davis, Jocelyn Stewart, Anita Prince, Kira Mickelson, Jacqueline McCloskey, Emrit Tesler. Please field it from this way forward. All right. Ms. Davis, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Board of Education Committee, everyone sitting here. My name is Brittany Davis. I am a Montgomery County resident, a parent to a high school senior at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, and a special education advocate. I am speaking from experience, not theory. I've spent countless hours and thousands of dollars from my savings and 90% of my 401k to secure my son's free and appropriate public education, public education. IEP service gaps and placement issues forced him to repeat 12th grade with little support, although there was back data from the medical experts. This is a systematic crisis disproportionately impacting African American students with disabilities. According to the statistics, African American students are 26% of MCPS special education, yet only 22% of enrollment. The 2023 through 2024 MCAP data shows stark gaps. Just 45.6% of Black students in grades 3 through 8 scored proficient in reading and comprehension versus 78.5% of other students. In math, only 18% of Black students, middle schoolers, and 13.8% of African American high schoolers in Algebra 1 hit proficiency, non-majority levels district-wide. These gaps are structural, programs exist, but access and coordination and program follow-up fail families. I urge the board to adopt the bridge approach, establish special education family resource centers for IEP navigation, expand career transition planning from grade 10, audit placements and discipline for equity, and fill the ombudsman role as I have been directed from the ombudsman back to the director. Families at BCC are redirected to the director, leaving us without district-wide accountability. Parents shouldn't have to litigate or liquidate savings for what's legally owed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Jocelyn Stewart, and I've been a special education teacher in MCPS for 32 years. We are here today to make you aware of the significant problems in the CKLA curriculum and to ask for your support to design and implement solutions. When MCPS recognized that the benchmark ELA curriculum lacked foundational literacy skill development, they promised to find something better that would help close the literacy gap for 40,000 Black and Brown students, 18,000 emergent multilingual learners, and 10,000 students with disabilities. After 2 years of waiting, MC promised that the Amplify CKLA curriculum was chosen because it was designed to meet the needs of all learners, with resources and supports for differentiated instruction, and explicit materials for students receiving special education services. But 6 months later, 80% of teachers surveyed said that CKLA does not provide differentiation in its instruction, content, or activities. The only differentiation CKLA provides is for students to follow along while long texts written above their reading level are read aloud, even though the words are not highlighted and there are very few quality visuals to support their understanding. By continuing to use this curriculum as it is now, we have failed to provide equal learning opportunities for our weakest readers. And no matter how consistently we teach it, our scores will not improve if the content is not accessible. As a result, we propose that MCPS require members of the ELA, ELD, and special education offices to establish agreed-upon guidelines for differentiation that put the students' needs first, allow teachers to edit the CKLA slides to make the lessons accessible, and allow a group of teachers to earn summer pay or credit hours to create differentiated text, lessons, and activities. Right now, 10,000 of our students do not have access to the reading and writing curriculum they were promised. They're still waiting, and they deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Prince?
Hello, my name is Anita Prince. I've been a teacher of English language learners in MCPS for 21 years. The newly purchased curriculum, Amplifies CKLA, falls far short of what MCPS teachers requested and what all our students deserve. CKLA fails to even provide the fundamentals of an elementary school curriculum, instruction in reading and in the writing process. CKLA is based mostly on boring history and science and not on enjoyable and character-building literature to spark children's love of learning. For our 18,000 English language learners, CKLA has been a disaster. CKLA's materials for language learners are unusable and sitting on shelves in most schools. They were not designed properly to be used alongside teachers in the classroom. Moreover, Language Studio materials lack a clear scope and sequence for teaching the English language. This year, all our young students have suffered. We see difficulty reading and accessing the CKLA content. Much of it is way above students' grade level. It is often inappropriate, with text including violent, racist, sexist, and classist content. 90% of the teachers we surveyed say they spend large amounts of time searching, creating materials to make up for the failings of the CKLA curriculum. We propose that CKLA be replaced with a good quality curriculum from a reputable educational publisher, and a group of experienced English language teachers be contracted to provide expert parallel curriculum so we can do our job.
Thank you. Ms. Mickelson?
Good afternoon. My name is Kira Mickelson, and I am a second grade teacher at Cold Spring Elementary School. Our group gathered data from 100 MCPS teachers using an informal survey. 78% of the respondents said that CKLA does not teach students how to read. It does not use a systematic way of providing phonics instruction or review. It is predominantly teacher-directed and depends upon too much text being read aloud, which limits students' opportunities to develop fluency, comprehension skills, and practice independent reading to increase stamina. In K-2, students are asked to spend up to 60 minutes at a time listening to high-level informative texts, which do not include sufficient picture and/or student text support. It requires teachers to use daily and unit pacing guides that are unrealistic and developmentally inappropriate. In fact, CKLA lessons have more instruction about science and social studies content instead of instruction about reading skills. As a result, 93% of teachers said that they do not have time to provide the most important part of reading, structured small group instruction, which is when students learn specific reading skills that are reinforced with independent practice. Despite being an ELA curriculum, 72% of teachers agree that CKLA does not have enough children's literature, and 74% said that the CKLA texts are written at a level that is higher than most students can access. As a result, we propose that MCPS resubscribe to the complete Really Great Reading program for phonics instruction and review in all grade levels in place of the CKLA skills text. Allow groups of teachers to earn summer pay or credit hours to redesign the CKLA unit pacing guides and the daily instructional outlines to bring back required daily small group instruction. Develop a library of approved text, including read-alouds that teachers can use when the primary CKLA texts are too difficult or contain objectionable content. Create K-2 consumable text, which allows students to interact with the knowledge domain text in meaningful ways, with more picture supports and developmentally appropriate language, and align the CKLA units with the elementary science and social studies instruction to prevent content overload and student confusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. McCloskey.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie McCluskey, and I'm a second grade teacher at Matsunaga Elementary School. Of the 100 teachers who responded to our informal survey, 84% said CKLA does not teach students how to write because it does not have lessons that explicitly teach students to produce clear and accurate writing, use the writing process, or create different types of writing. Most CKLA writing lessons use whole group modeling without enough time for guided or independent practice. 68% said that CKLA's writing lessons focus on the product, not on the process of writing. 48% said the CKLA writing assignments were not appropriate for the grade level. Even the workbooks are not designed for the size of a young child's handwriting. Most of the dedicated writing time in CKLA is spent responding to the text. As a result, we propose that number one, MCPS allow groups of teachers to earn summer pay or credit hours to create 4 writing projects for each grade level, 1 per quarter. Also, we also propose that MCPS collects teacher input and initiates a search for a research-based writing curriculum with developmentally appropriate expectations and materials that match the Maryland state standards. This writing curriculum should include lessons and assignments that teach writing skills and include different types of writing: narrative, informative, opinion. Lessons that teach and projects that use the writing process. Writing lessons and practice assignments that systematically teach grammar and build on previously learned material. Daily guided or independent writing practice. Well-designed writing projects that engage students and provide rigor. Differentiated lessons, practice, and assignments for EML students and students with disabilities. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Tesler.
Good afternoon. My name is Emmett Tesler. My pronouns are he, they. I'm a first grade teacher at Roscoe Nix Elementary School. Last year, we were told that CKLA was the best choice in the curriculum because it uses integrated, formative, and summative assessments to inform and improve instruction. After 6 months of implementation, MCPS teachers strongly disagree. We did an informal survey. 70% said that CKLA assessments do not provide any usable data to inform instruction or determine students' reading progress, particularly thumbs up, thumbs down quizzes in primary grades. 66% of the assessments, 66% said the assessments are too long and too difficult for their students at their grade level, requiring multiple days for students to complete the tests. They noted specifically the texts needed to do the tests are above grade level oftentimes, and they assess skills that are only introduced in the lessons. They also noted that the assessments have questions that are phrased so poorly that they confuse students who otherwise understand the material. Many teachers are also frustrated by the complexity of the scoring guides and rubrics and the amount of time required to both grade and enter in those scores. As a result, we propose that MCPS make some CKLA assessments required and some optional, reduce the number of CKLA assessments required, starting with the elimination of those thumbs up, thumbs down quizzes, require CKLA to provide formative assessment tools to measure reading comprehension progress as advertised to us, allow groups of teachers to earn summer pay or credit hours to redesign the rubrics, and create new and more appropriate summative assessments, and to set up CKL units to be scored and recorded in Performance Matters, similar to how it is done with Eureka. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I apologize for the wrong pronoun. Okay, I'm going to call the next two in-person speakers to come to the front. Is Alicia Drain and Matthew Welzin. You may go ahead.
Hello, my name is Alicia Drain. I'm an elementary ELD teacher from Wheaton Woods Elementary School. I'm also the elementary ELD representative on the Council for Teaching and Learning. I'm here today on behalf of over 200 ELD teachers who responded to a survey that I did on behalf of the Council for Teaching and Learning in regards to Amplify CKLA. While CKLA is intended to build content knowledge and literacy, it's not meeting the needs of multilingual learners. Of the 215 teachers that I surveyed, 69% of educators report that CKLA is not effective for multilingual learners. 80% reported spending a considerable amount of time adapting, making scaffolds to make the curriculum accessible. 82% expressed concerns that our students are assessed on skills not explicitly taught in CKLA. CKLA moves very quickly, assumes a high level of English proficiency that some of our students don't have. It offers limited built-in support for vocabulary or language development, which are both critical for multilingual learners. Teachers are left to fill in those gaps on their own without the sufficient time, the training, and the materials we needed. We did, the Language Studio was purchased, but it's often disconnected from what the kids are studying at the time. The deeper issue is CKLA was not built for multilingual learners in mind. I do want to say we're looking forward to new leadership within Delmy, one that is supportive of teachers, responds to them when they express concerns, and builds trust with educators. Our multilinguals bring brilliance to our classrooms, and we're looking forward to having instruction that they can access and give them the tools and support that they truly need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next, Mr. Welson.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Welson, and I am the instrumental music teacher at Argyle Magnet Middle School. I have been here for 6 of my 13 years of teaching. I'm here to represent the teachers and students of Argyle Middle School. I wanted to begin by thanking the district and the board for starting a sound remediation of my music classroom. This is a major upgrade that will drastically improve the learning of the students in my classes. While this upgrade will help with sound, my room has terrible environmental conditions. This year we had to evacuate my classroom because it became full of smoke. I have no windows to open and air the room out. The HVAC is manually controlled with a dial that lasts 30 minutes. Climate is another issue. I have to have a dehumidifier running 24/7 in my room to deal with moisture and prevent mold growth. The classroom also has issues with extreme heat to which the AC cannot keep up with. Our school has ongoing issues with ridiculously high VOC levels due to poor ventilation. My room has one of the highest levels. This brings me to our school. As a tech magnet, our electrical needs are beyond the capacity of the school. We have repair techs in our school almost on a daily basis, and that is a waste of county resources. Electricity regularly goes out in various walls in the classroom and affects lights, box lights, Chromebook charging, and learning. Our bleachers regularly short our electrical system. As a tech magnet, we should have state-of-the-art chargers and electrical capacity. The school itself is a hodgepodge of add-ons. The school was originally an open floor plan school that has been enclosed. Classrooms do not have locking doors, and parts are not readily available. We have classrooms that are full of fumes, like gasoline and sewage, with no ventilation. Our hallways and stairwells are narrow, hazardous, and need updating. We are now a community school and have to have staff create offices out of storage closets. The students at Argyle deserve more than just incredible teachers. They also deserve to have the same quality institutions that their peers have. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one audio and one video testimony. And before we play that, I want to let everyone know that Ms. Wolf have to leave because she's not feeling very well. Okay, so MCPS TV, can you play the audio and the video testimony? Just to let everyone know, sometimes with different format, people might use creative methods to express their ideas. So please play the audio and video.
Hello, my name is Amara, and I'm part of the MCPS-MCR Equitable Education Task Force. I attend Montgomery Blair High School, and I'm going to talk to you today about the lack of linguistic resources for students who don't speak English but don't speak Spanish. My mother's an immigrant who moved here from the Ivory Coast when she was just 6 years old. She's Haitian, so her native language is French Creole, which was her primary language she spoke until high school, when she had to switch to English. In high school and college, my mother struggled with writing in English and would take up the dictionary and translate word for word from French to English. She recalled the insane amount of time it took her to complete her assignments and how much of a challenge it was for her to transition with few supports. According to MCPS's 2023 to 2024 annual report, 167 languages are spoken by students across the county. An article by Moderately Moco News reflects some data from 2015 to 2021 and states that the top 5 languages are Spanish, 71%, French, Amharic, Chinese, and Portuguese. This data shows that while a significant portion of non-English speaking students and residents speak Spanish, not all of them do. If 70% of MCPS non-English speakers speak Spanish, that means that around 30% of non-English speaking speakers speak some other language, and those students should not be dismissed. Non-English speakers who don't speak Spanish deserve resources too, and I have 3 solutions that could reduce this problem and better promote equity. Number 1 is hiring more counselors who are multilingual. Hiring more counselors who are fluent in languages like English, Spanish, Mandarin, Amharic, etc. will allow students who don't speak English to be able to turn and communicate with a crucial figure in school. Most schools lack enough counselors anyway, so why not hire more who know more languages and could reach a wider range of students? Number 2, have important documents available in more languages, not just Spanish. Newsletters, emails, content on Student View, etc. should be printed or designed where students and parents can request the content of the document to be translated in their language. Number 3, starting what I like to call a multilingual mentor program. In these program's exemplary multilingual students who are fluent in English and other languages would be guides to freshmen and sophomores who don't speak English very well to make their experience less overwhelming and communicate the steps needed to have a smooth schooling experience. The diversity in this program would be a great resource to our wide pool of non-English students. Helping these students not only catch up but excel in school is not just a priority, but it's our duty.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn to my colleagues for questions and comments. Let's start with one question, one comment. I'm going to start from my left-hand side. Mr. Savannah.
Yes, well, there's so many things I wish I could get to. I'm going to start by thanking all the students for coming out and sharing their voices. It's always important when we hear from students, so I'm so grateful that we got the chance. And just to have administration follow up with some of the concerns for my first thing around the co-ed volleyball teams and the distribution, maybe providing an update to the board on that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. It was wonderful to hear from so many students and from so many educators, especially at the elementary level. I know that you had to take time away from your students to be here, which results in things like sub-plans, and that takes a lot of time and requesting time off. So thank you for taking that time to come speak before us. I would also like to follow up on some data. I'd like to see a comparison of K-1-2 DIBELS data for school years 23-24 compared to 24-25. I'd also like to see the data at the end with CKLA. I'd like to see which of our students are meeting proficiency or other benchmarks on the CKLA curricular assessments, which, to be clear, is separate from DIBELS, across K-5, and relatedly, how much of that instructional time as a percentage is being spent on these assessments based on the MCPS produced pacing guides. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rivera-Ovens.
I'd like to echo my colleagues saying thank you to the students, to the parents, and specifically to you, the teachers. We are celebrating teachers this month, so your diligence and your commitment to our students is admirable. Thank you for being here from all different schools. I just want to say that when CKLA was presented to us, I did ask our folks about, especially with our, I'm a former ESOL student, as many of you know, so the ELD, and I think some of you remember that I specifically asked how this curriculum was going to make it even better for our EML students. Not harder, not more difficult. So I'm just interested to, and I will be following up with staff about some of the statistics and how, just to compare the data with how they're doing now with this new system in a way versus the one before, because this is what we don't want to do. We don't want to make it harder for you, but we don't want to make it harder for the young people that this is meant to be and to actually help. You already have a great job to do. We don't make it harder for you, but we want these young learners not to be turned off because they cannot keep up with the learning, or they feel left out and then they tune out. That doesn't benefit anyone. So I know that Dr. Taylor heard you loud and clear, and I know that this is something that we're gonna. I think various of my colleagues will make sure that we look into this. And I just want to say thank you for elevating it and for doing the advocacy that you did today.
Thank you. Ms. Montoya.
Thank you. And of course, I want to echo my colleagues and thank everyone for being here today. I especially would like to thank Mr. Stein for teaching us about what MCPS-ing it means to help better inform our discussion and hopefully our decision making. I definitely don't want my own children MCPS-ing it, so I don't want any of our children to do that either. I would like to echo the follow-up from Mr. Severna to figure out what's going on with co-ed volleyball. Ms. Zimmerman about DIBELS, but I wanted to note about the DIBELS, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Taylor. I believe some of our schools piloted this curriculum prior to this year. I believe one of my own son's schools piloted it. So I would like to have that marked in some way so that we can see what those schools have done, because, for example, I believe at least one of the schools that I know of had it for at least 2 or 3 years, or 2 years prior to the introduction this year. So I know sometimes when we change things, it takes a little while to acclimate, and I'm just wondering if maybe after the first year we saw some growth in DIBELS perhaps, and so maybe this is part of the acclimation. I'm just not sure, so I would like to see that. And if you could also send us the survey results, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart.
I also look forward to those evaluations on the reading curriculum. And I know we have heard from Argyle, I believe a couple months ago in February, and I noticed that they mentioned the door locks, electrical problems. So I'm hoping that we are continuing to work with that school, knowing that we have, unfortunately, a lot of older schools out there, and our budget, we try to keep up, but we really need to know how can we make things better today. So I'd love to follow up. By the way, I visited Argyle. Amazing experience, amazing school, and I hope we can make things a little better for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Savannah.
Yes, thank you. So coming back for round two, again, echoing the sentiment to my colleagues, especially around sort of the infrastructure sort of concerns that we've heard. And, I'm definitely looking forward to some of the future CKLA follow-ups that we get at the board table. And then I did want to reference back to grading and reporting. I'm really excited for the presentation today. I know students from across the county also had their concerns with the grading system. I was very grateful to have had the opportunity to review it with members of MCPS staff at a small advisory council meeting where all students could come and attend, and having the opportunity for students to give direct input there was great. And I think I can see a lot of those changes reflected in the grading policy too. So excited to see it later today.
Thank you. Ms. Silvestri.
Yes, about the curriculum, Dr. Taylor, I know this is not the first time that we have heard some concerns from various areas of our educator force, and I know that there is work underway. If there's anything that you want to add in terms of what we have heard in the past, what we're hearing today, and what we're doing about it.
Ms. Matoya.
Thank you. I just have one more quick thing. I wanted to thank Ms. Davis. I believe, is she still here? Ms. Davis, as a parent who has worked very hard to get services, I appreciate you coming in here to give your perspective and your viewpoint, including how much money you had to spend as a parent to secure what is supposed to be a free public education for your child. We are making changes in our special education department. I'm sure you've heard we are lucky to have a phenomenal new leader in that space who is here with us today, Dr. Cage. So we welcome her and want to give her time to get acclimated, but she was here to hear you, and I'm happy for that. So thank you for coming, Ms. Davis.
Ms. Rivera-Alves.
I don't know, Dr. Taylor, would you like to answer board member?
I just wanted to know if you had any comments based on what we heard today about the curriculum.
Pull together some thoughts and we'll share back out. I think it's a big enough topic that that really the board and the public deserve a lot more information. So we're thrilled to bring it back up. So thank you for elevating it.
Thanks. I would like to just also, because this is a topic that we have touched in the past, from the testimony from Mrs. Bapru from the SEIU about, and I think, we have had such an increase of special education, medical fragile students, more EML students coming into our system, and we're such a, as somebody said, such a diverse communities. As you know, I represent the County, which is a quadrant, which we speak 160 languages. I mean, Montgomery County is an amazing melting pot. We're like the little United Nations of the country. But I think we brought this issue up about training for our support staff when it comes to kids with special education, medical fragile, EML, and all that. And I think last year we were looking into implementing some of those trainings for our folks, because many of them do want to be trained, do want to learn, do want to know how to relate, how to handle situations, any conflict resolution situations with the children. They're the first people they see when they get, when they get up in the morning. The first contact that they have with an adult is usually at the bus stop with your bus driver. I know that I used to look forward to seeing Mr. Garfield every morning when I went to Washington Grove. He always gave us lollipops, on Fridays, and it was just such a wonderful, tender memories that I have of that age, and I just want every child to kind of experience what I had, that experience as well. But that's food for thought, and looking forward to having that conversation with you guys.
Thank you. Dr. Taylor, in terms of today's testimony, I want to share two comments. Number one is, it is my expectation that our onboarding and training to be year-round for both professional and supporting professional staff. We have noticed that as staff come on board at different times of the year, that is an area that we can strengthen and improve. Second one is, I believe CKLA has implementation evaluation coming up in part of the Office of Accountability's work in their yearly plan. If it does not include the evaluation about the special education, it's implementation in the special education area or the ELD area, EML area, we would like to see that included. Kudos to the staff who have taken initiative to do your own survey, but it will be very helpful for a system-wide evaluation. So thank you, everyone, for coming in, and I associate myself with the comments of my colleagues. Now, this concludes public comment. The board's next business meeting is Thursday, May 8th. Online sign-up for public comment will open on Thursday, May 1st at 6 p.m. In addition to online sign-ups, same-day in-person sign-ups are permitted when space allows, with unallocated slots filled on a first-come, first-served basis. To sign up in person, please check in at least 20 minutes before the start of open session. In-person sign-up will close 15 minutes before public comment begins or when all slots are filled. Now, additional information regarding upcoming meeting can be found on the board's website. So thank you, everyone. We are going to proceed to our next business item, which is consent items. Are there any consent items board members would like to pull? See no lights? Double checking. And then may I have a motion to approve items 6.1 to 6.9 in block?
Move to approve 6.1 through 6.9 in block. And if I may, can I ask a question to administration in general about contracts at this point?
If that's not, this is the, after you make the motion, you're not having conversation. If you would like to have conversation, you should pull an item to have a conversation.
Understood. Not pulling any items.
Okay. May I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous with those present. All right, then we are going to proceed to our next business items, which is 7.1, a very important discussion on the Secondary Program Analysis Overview and Boundary Study Community Engagement Plan Update. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. For your next installment in our massive boundary and program study evaluation, we're thrilled to offer this next presentation, which will provide updates on parallel studies that are happening, our secondary program analysis and our boundary study. To give a regular update, you will receive more updates on this topic as the months continue on, and we'll provide some timelines with that. These studies will align timelines, principles, goals, and they're designed to improve experiences and opportunities for our students. The purpose of the district-wide secondary program study is to reimagine academic program distribution to ensure equitable access to high-quality programs that meet the needs of our community and industry demands to maximize our resources. We will share an overview today of where we are in that process. We will also share an update with the community on our engagement plan for the boundary studies. The plan is intended to emphasize transparency, accessibility, and clear communication with our stakeholders throughout the entire process, and that is a process that is ongoing. We will discuss the initial information sessions that were held for the 2 boundary studies, as well as the next steps that we're taking for our next round of community engagement, which will include some initial options. So very exciting. I'll now turn it over to Mrs. Nikki Hazel, our Chief Academic Officer, and Mr. Adnan Mamoon, our Chief Operations Officer, and Mrs. Angela McLean, the Assistant to the Associate Superintendent, to begin our presentation today. And Kat Malchody is also at the table.
Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Taylor. Good afternoon, President Yang and members of the board. If you can go to the next slide. We are here to talk about the 2 parallel bodies of work taking place, one being our program analysis and also the boundary study. And I know that there are still a lot of questions about what is happening in each area. So again, we just want to reiterate that our boundary studies are really focused on where our students will be assigned for their home school, and our program analysis is really looking at where the programs are in our schools, where there is a need for more programming across the district, so our programs are focused on the entire district, and where we will need to place programs so that there is more equitable access to those programs. So the 2 bodies of work are happening with parallel timelines, and we want to ensure that we're answering the questions for our families about their homeschool designation and also the programs that are available in their school and in their surrounding areas, other schools in their surrounding areas. So we're going to talk today about the work that we're doing with our communities. Both bodies of work are engaging the communities, and in some cases, some of those community members are working with both groups, which is really nice because they are really able to understand how the 2 intersect. And so if you go to the next slide, we are going to focus on the goals. First, we're going to talk about the programs, and then we'll talk about boundaries, but we're going to just talk about the goals of our program analysis. As we shared at our last meeting, we're going to focus on secondary to begin this work, and we're really starting with the end in mind, and we'll think about all of the secondary programs that we want to have in our school district and where we want to place those programs. And then we'll begin to do that vertical articulation down to really think about how the programs in middle school and elementary school can align to what's happening at the high schools. So that is our thinking as we move forward. So as we think about secondary programs, we're talking about programs such as our regional and countywide criteria-based programs. Some people know them as our magnet programs. We're thinking about our middle and high school regional and countywide lottery-based programs. We're thinking about our career and technical education programs, or CTE, and also programs with access to accelerated instruction or advanced courses like AP or dual enrollment. So that just gives you an understanding of the range of programs that we're thinking about as we look across our district. To get more specifically into our goals, if you can go to the next slide, we aren't starting from scratch as we think about our program analysis. We have been working with, over the last several years, not only hearing from our community members, but we have also worked with external partners from the METIS group, from ESG, who have given us a lot of recommendations about what we should be thinking about as it relates to programs. And we have heard a lot from our communities every year as they go through this choice process and lottery process. We have a lot of questions from community. So we are very clear about what the needs are. Equitable access is one area that is very clear from our families. Families want to have high quality programs in their local schools and also within a reasonable distance. They don't want to be traveling all across the district to get to programs. We also hear from our families that many of our families want to stay in their local home school. And in order to do that, they want to make sure that they have programs available in their school. So that is something that we know most of our families actually want to stay in their local home school. The other area that we are considering is the community needs and the industry needs. When we think about all of our data that we have collected over the years, we see what our community, what our students value, what is in high demand, where we have wait lists of students for programs. So we want to keep that in mind as we are growing programs across the district. And we also want to think about what the industry is saying in terms of industry demand as we look towards the future. We also want to think about what businesses and industry have in our county and where we may want to put programs that are near those businesses. So that is something else that we are considering. And then the other piece that we're considering is the resource efficiency. We want to make sure that we are thinking about what our buildings offer. We're thinking about transportation. We're thinking about our budget and our resources. We have programs that may be underutilized and maybe there's not as much interest, but we're spending a lot of money or we are transporting students to those programs, and it may be time that we sunset those programs. When we have other programs that are really in high demand and we really need to be thinking about how we grow, expand those programs. So those are all of the things that we are thinking through with our community. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. McLean to get into our timeline and talk about the work we're doing with our community.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is a high-level overview of the work of the next 7 to 8 months. We have started a secondary program analysis. We're looking at where our programs are, who's enrolled in them this year, and we're starting to look at some of the student outcomes. We have convened another community project team, parallel to the boundary study project team. We like to call this one the opportunity to design team because of the kind of work they're doing. And so their job is to recommend a framework, the set of programs that all students should have access to. Wrapping around that is our broader community engagement. We've begun our planning. We're doing a survey across the community. We're planning some community meetings, and that will inform the work of the opportunity design team. They'll hand their framework over to an MCPS project team who will start planning how to make this happen, what are our communication plans, and they'll stay involved. They will be providing feedback along the way. And our hope is we will have our plan by the end of this calendar year. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our community team. It's made up of our families, our community members, including industry members, and school-based staff. And they are pretty fantastic. They're engaged, they're accomplished, they're excited. They are very interested in the charge that they have, that they will recommend a set of programs. available to all secondary students while addressing reasonable cost, distance, all the limited resources. And sorry, just lost my thought for a second. So we're looking at the work in two different ways. One would be what programs would be offered in a reasonable distance, but also what programs should be offered to all schools because of our commitment to strong local schools. So we have met. We had our introductory meeting 3 times because we were still building the group membership as far as ensuring that there was a broad range of representation. And today is our next meeting, meeting number 2. And one of the things that they'll do is look at the survey that's been drafted and provide us feedback. And then they'll start digging into some of our regional and county-wide programs. So we're excited to work with them. And so we hope to launch the broader engagement a little bit with the survey over the break, but with some meetings as soon as we return. And we'll get that information to our project team as soon as we have it. We'll turn it back over.
So next slide, please. So good afternoon. Wanted to start out by just going over the guiding principles for the boundary study before we discuss a little bit about our community engagement that has taken place and community engagement that we plan on arranging in the future. So the factors in policy FAA are the demographic characteristic of the student population, geographic proximity to schools, stability of school assignment over time, and facility utilization. So these are the factors that guide all of our boundary studies. So one of the things that we have done, please, next slide. One of the things we have wanted to do, as Dr. Taylor mentioned, we have already started engaging the community. The first set of meetings, the goal was to inform the community, not just why we're doing this. Obviously, we're opening 2 new schools, well, reopening Woodward and opening Crown in 2027. So we wanted to explain the why, but also the how, which is definitely explaining to them the factors that are involved in, considerations for creating the maps that we will be taking back to the community. So we just wanted to make sure the community members are informed and educated. And then, we also asked through the survey if they needed more information about any of these factors. So what we want to do is establish a clear line of communication with the community, making sure we're providing enough information to educate them. So with that, what we have done, we have had 4 meetings so far, 2 of them virtual, 1 for Crown and 1 for Woodward. And then we had 1 meeting for Woodward and Walter Johnson in person. And then 1 we had a meeting yesterday at Gaithersburg High School for the Crown and Damascus expansion. And we have provided information to the public about, the timeline, what they can expect, at what time, and how they can, more importantly, how they can provide us feedback. So with that, we do have surveys out there currently that we're collecting data on. Some of the things that we have asked the community members to fill out during the surveys is also information about the zip codes they're filling it out from, which allows us to understand where we're getting the data from. And if there are any areas that we're not getting the data from, that allows us to then design our future engagement in a proper way so that we can reach out to all the community members. We have also explained the process so they understand what's happening now, who's working on the creation of the boundary maps, when can they expect to see the initial boundary maps, and more importantly, how they can give us feedback through this, not only just the survey, but also they can go to our websites to get more information. And Ms. Melchiotti is going to talk about a little bit more about the website design and what people can expect going forward. And then we have also provided them access to comments form that they can find on our website where they can put in their questions. And during these initial meetings, we have collected questions via either index cards or via the online meeting where they could type in their questions. We obviously tried to answer some of those questions during the meeting, but obviously the volume of questions didn't allow us to answer all the questions during the meetings. But what it does allow us to do is collect those questions and kind of understand the themes of questions we're getting. We need, then it allows us to update the frequently asked questions page on our website so people can visit frequently and get more information. And we have also shared the timeline that in May and June, we're going to go back to the community with the initial options. And then in July and August, we'll be collecting more survey data, refining the options. In September, we're going to go back with refined options to the community. And then in October, November, we're going to be working towards, working with Dr. Taylor in creating the superintendent's recommendation. And then we do plan to go back to the community in December to give them an update on the overall process and how it turned out. Next slide, please. So I would like to provide with you an update on the boundary study engagement and outreach plan. We're making some significant changes to enhance our community engagement and communications. First, we're shifting our leadership of the engagement and communication efforts for the boundary study to our in-house experts in the divisions of communications and family and community engagement. This decision is aimed at ensuring a more comprehensive and meaningful engagement experience for everyone involved in this process. To do this, our staff will follow a series of goals voiced by our community and, importantly, by the Board of Education. We will ensure that engagement is accessible to all, regardless of language, ability, or schedule. And then we aim to promote culturally responsive engagement across all the regions of our community. Additional engagement will be realized by the work of not only of the MCPS project team, but we also have a community project team that is on board with us, helping us through this process, which includes the local leaders who represent diverse population of the county. Also, the Board of Education's own communications advisory group is focused on the boundary study project this year. These teams will serve as the trusted voices in all aspects of the project. Our community engagement strategy is focused on making a strong effort to include everyone, particularly those communities that have previously been left out. We'll talk about a little bit more about what we are doing currently. There will be multiple opportunities for community members to get involved, whether it's in person, virtually, or other hybrid formats. We'll also offer interpretation services and ensure that all of our venues and platforms are accessible to everyone. So we know that trust starts with clear communication. We will make sure that our messages are clearly outlined, and then how the community's feedback will be used and how the community can provide us and in what points and in what methods they can give us the feedback. We'll plan to use plain and jargon-free language and tailor our communications to specific audiences such as families, staff, and others. Transparency is going to be key throughout this process, and we'll continue to share with the public timeline of key events, including the meetings, surveys, and board discussions, so people know how and when they can engage with us. This engagement strategy is grounded in our 4 core values of representation, accessibility, quality, and transparency. We do plan to come back in May to update the board about our community engagement plan and a more detailed information about the strategies we plan to put in place to ensure culturally responsive and inclusive engagement. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Melchiotti now to talk about some of the initiatives that we have already taken place and what we're planning to do in the near future.
And this is my favorite part. So one of the things that's really important about this work is to listen to our community and to the feedback that we get as we go through the process, as well as before. And so one of the things that we heard during this first round is that, well, one, people were frustrated because they just wanted to get to the options. They were hoping that we would get there faster. And what we really wanted to do was make sure that people who haven't been a part of this process before understand what it looks like. People were able to attend Zoom sessions. They were able to attend in-person sessions. And upon reflection, we've had 4 of them now. We need to do something else as well. So one of the things that we're doing is taking the slides and chunking them into pieces. So if you want to learn a little more about the policy and you don't carry it around like I do, there's a smaller section that will give you that information. There's also going to be a smaller section that gives you information about the scope and about the data. Because one of the things that's really neat is to listen to the questions that are asked, and a lot of them are very similar. And so people clearly have this idea of what they want to know, and it's our job to make sure that they get that information. We've been working feverishly on the FAQ as well. So not just answering individual questions, but chunking them into topics as well so that someone can go and say, I just want to know a little bit more about this. I don't want to read 13 pages of an FAQ to find the answers to the question that I asked. And so that's something that we're working on and we're excited about putting out. One of the other things that we're going to do as well is when we think about round 2, which is where people actually get to see options. What does that look like, sound like, feel like for community members, staff, students, so that they can interact with the information in the best way possible? And what we've determined is that can't just be one way. You can't just have an open session and expect everyone to be able to participate in the same way, whether that's time constraints, language barriers, just sort of apathy for the process. We need to do better. And so one of the things that we've been really excited about for the second round is to do all of those things. So yes, we're still going to have our big community meetings because that's something that we do, and you can be efficient in that way where you can open it to a lot of people. We are also being very intentional about the locations. The first 2 were chosen because they're very accessible via public transportation. They have big parking lots. And so thinking at each level where we want to go next and working with our teams to make sure those spaces work. One of the things we also recognized was that some people need a little bit of help to look at options and get some understanding. So we're going to set up some ways in which you can get all the help you need in a full-blown session in person. You can get a little bit of help where you just may need a computer to access the options and maybe someone to ask a question to if you want to, but you don't need a 2-hour presentation. And then also an online version where you can actually go in. I can have the same language, the same recording of a video that tells me about this option. I can play with it, I can interact with it, I can see all the extra data that goes into it if I want to, and then I can give feedback all in one place. And so we're building that right now. We're super excited for it because what you just have to recognize is everyone is different. I said to the group last night, I couldn't go. I was a working parent. My husband was doing pickup duty and dinner duty because we were both busy, so we wouldn't have been able to attend an in-person session. And so even just thinking about how to put the information in places where someone could sit at the carpool pickup and do it on their phone while they're waiting those 20 minutes to get their children is a really impactful way for people to be able to give feedback that's different than our sort of old-fashioned mindset of, oh, if you don't come in person, can't participate. And so that's something we're really excited about. We are excited to share it with everyone, and we are thankful for the support we have gotten from our family engagement and communications friends and other groups who we've called on as well. So that's a lot, but thank you.
So, basically, we've heard about the secondary program analysis that Ms. Hazel shared, and we talked about our engagement plan, which we do plan on coming back to the board next month, again, to share the details and additional engagement, as Ms. Mulchelli talked about. So we'll now open up for board member comments and questions.
Thank you, everyone, for your presentation. Now, board colleagues, that presentation actually covered 2 topics. One is secondary program analysis. Another one is boundary study. So when I open it for questions and comment, I want to actually focus one at a time. So the first one, or if you have comments or questions, one at a time for secondary program analysis. That's Ms. Hazel and Ms. McLean's presentation. Turn your light on, and I'm going to start from my right-hand side. Ms. Montoya, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Yang. I do have to leave momentarily for my own as a working parent to go get my own children. But I just wanted to thank all of you. I appreciate the slide presentation. It's clear. I can see what's going on. I love the format. It's helping me to better focus on the content. That will go for the next folks who present on grading and reporting. Same thing about the slides. Appreciate it. And I wanted to also echo something that one of you said that I think is something we might say more often around here.
We had these certain things, and then upon reflection, we realized we needed to do something more. So I just appreciate the thought that is going into all of this. I know it's a lot to manage. We're doing these studies across each other, and your willingness to say, okay, we did this thing, and then when it was actualized, it was good, but it didn't cover all the bases, so we know we need to do something else, and we're going to regroup and do that. So thank you so much.
Ms. Stewart?
I just wanted to highlight something I was really happy to hear, that we are going to look at the programs at all schools that should be in all of our high schools and middle schools, and then in geographic areas. And the reason I think that's so important is because through the years, I've seen great variation even on basic offerings like band. So I think this would be a great opportunity to say, hey, what, as long as we are properly budgeted, what's the minimum that should be available for all kids to access? And that's not by chance, right? And I'm not talking about a super specialized program, but a beginning band program, sometimes that's offered in high school, sometimes it's not. Those are the type of areas I would love for us to really drill down. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rivera-Ovens, Programs Analysis.
Thank you. I, too, want to echo Ms. Stewart's point, because I think for the longest time we have had an equity issue in this county when it comes to access of programs, and now we're looking at it with a different lens, and I really appreciate that. Just a few questions I have about the group that is working on those recommendations. If we could have a list of who those folks are, if you could send that to us, that would be greatly appreciated. And I would like just to see the representation, not so much the diversity, but also geographic representation as well. And this is a big undertaking, so thank you for thinking of the different ways to make sure that the community has access to us, because I think as big systems, right, we expect everybody to come to us and we forget that we have, almost 160,000 students, and this is going to affect almost every student in our county. And like Ms. Montoya said, we have a lot of working parents, a lot of single parents, a lot of parents who work 2 jobs, and this is traditionally this is not something that many of our Black and brown communities usually participate in. But guess what? They are very much affected by those decisions and those results at the end of the day. So I appreciate that. And I also would like to, if you can give us a report about the participation of folks who use it, interpreting, translation, and all that good stuff. I know we had a little clicks or issues on our first Zoom, and that's okay, right? We learn and have backups. But even that, I appreciate the fact that we're making those efforts to be as inclusive as we can, to hear the broad voices of this county, which geographically, it is very, very big. So thank you so much, folks.
Ms. Silvestri?
Yeah, again, just echoing, I think we've had some testimony about why we're doing this program analysis. I hope that's clear on our website. I think it's been stated that we are all committed to ensuring that our children go to great comprehensive high schools where they have great programs in their schools, but we do need to take a step back and look at what options they do or don't have, and maybe some regions of the county that need some more bolstering. So that's why we are doing it, and thank you for this work. And my question is actually, how do you envision that the program analysis will intersect with the boundary study? Mm-hmm. If we're ready to answer that question.
Go ahead. Okay. Yes. So, so the intersection is going to be from the boundary study perspective. It's going to be about the assumptions we need to reserve a certain number of spaces for the programs. So initially, for us to start moving the options, forward, we will need to work with Ms. Hazel's team to understand the proposed sizes, more or less, and then we can, make those assumptions. But as the work for the program study, gets into more detail, then we can use the more detailed information. But right now, we can use some placeholders. So that's the intersection would be in the initial phases. But as we, as the study takes, more shape, we can use the more specific data for certain schools, at that time when that information becomes available.
All right. So my questions will be: we all know kids that stay on the bus for a whole hour to access a program. We all know during application time that there are confused parents of all the options out there for our program. So this is long overdue. Now, my question is, one of your blogs talk about community provides input through survey and meetings. Can you elaborate a little bit about these surveys and meetings? Who will be surveyed and in the meetings? That would be helpful.
Certainly. We are putting together a survey to get feedback from our community about the types of programs that they feel are important. Again, we get a lot of questions. Why don't we have more of this? There's not enough seats. So we want to hear from our community. There are lots of businesses and industry out there that we think the community can share with us to say this is something that we really need to consider. So that would be a part. We want to know how far do families want to go to be able to travel to a school? What do they think is a reasonable distance? And we'll also be talking with students as well. So we have focus groups, and we'll be surveying students to find out what their interests are as well.
Okay, so it's about location, type of programming that you will be surveying, the whole MCPS community.
Correct.
Okay, all right, colleagues.
Just one quick follow-up to what you asked. Thank you, Ms. Yang, for that question and the information. I just want to note, when we do survey students, I feel like, and maybe this is not true, but my perception is that a lot of times we just focus on our high school students, especially when we're looking at something like a program study. I just want to make sure that we're looking at the students that will actually be in those spaces at that time versus like the current students. So that would be maybe your middle school or maybe some of your upper elementary right now, just making sure that we're reaching those students and families as well. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart?
Are we moving on from program yet?
No, it's still program analysis.
Sorry.
Okay, so just to clarify, when you say the MCPS community is both students and parents, that's what you meant?
That is correct.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to the boundary study. Questions and comments. I'm going to start from this side. Ms.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you, first of all, for, this is not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination. And, the board has asked a lot when we come to you, time after time with, some pretty stringent sort of requests. And so thank you for coming back with analyses and these plans that I think really closely align to what I was looking for in terms of sort of some more information in terms of geographic diversity and how we're really getting into making sure that every part of our community is represented and accessible. I know within the conversations that I've had around student representation, we've had some great conversations there about making sure that student representation is there across the county. How are we just making sure that we're reaching out to as many different diverse groups of people as possible to make sure that certain sets of voices aren't overpowering others within the boundary process. And, I don't really have many comments to say because you guys have really just done a very wonderful job in up till this point in gathering feedback and listening to us. And so I just wanted to say that in terms of, thank you for what you've put together so far.
Ms. Silvestri.
Yeah, this is a super important work. I think I like the way you're thinking about all the different ways that people can get informed, not just assuming that they're going to come to a meeting in Rockville. I appreciate that. As I told Dr. Taylor, I want this to saturate the community. I want to be able to be at the grocery store and turn to my neighbor and I said, "Have you heard about the boundary study?" And I said, "Yes, I've heard about it. I know all about it. I've given my opinion so that the board can be well informed in terms of what people are looking for, but it is ultimately the board's decision." So we want to hear from families because we want to make sure that our decision is informed by all sectors of our community. So thank you for this work. Looking forward to it.
Ms. Rivera-Alvin.
Thank you. We're talking about the boundary now, right?
Yes.
So I just want some clarification about the survey. There's currently a survey on our web, correct? And do we know how many, do we have an idea so far how many folks have responded to that survey? Or like at least a ballpark?
I don't think we have that data, but we can
Okay.
definitely get,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm just,
get that
I
information.
just, I just kind of just give us, I know you're coming back in May, maybe you can bring, but one of the things that I have heard the feedback is that you can take the survey multiple times, which concerns me. And I'm just, look, I'm not a survey guru. I believe in all the ways also of engaging the community, but apparently you can take the survey, and maybe if you're even if you're not even a county resident, you might be able to take. So all those things concern me because we do want to make a decision for what is best for the residents of Montgomery County and the kids of those residents that are going to be directly affected. And I just want to make sure that we have I don't know how to say it, safeguards or to ensure that we are getting, right, a very true representation of the folks who are answering this, the survey. Because you could have somebody at home who could have all the time in the world, not me, I can tell you that, but others, right? And I just want to make sure, how do we go about maybe making sure that that is not happening or preventing from happening. I don't know, again, I'm not an IT person, but those things do concern me a little bit, not gonna lie. And surveys can be very tricky with communities that are not used to surveys. I'm gonna tell you right now, personally, I'm not a fan of long surveys. Sometimes I wanna do them because I had a really, I had a really, good experience somewhere, and then I look at it and it's 30 questions. I was like, there goes that experience. So I just, want to make sure that we're being, that we're just being as creative as possible to be able to get those voices, and to also, like Ms. Sylvester said, I want to be sick of people saying to me, "Stop sending me stuff about the boundary study, Grace. Enough already," because we just want to make sure that we don't miss any missed opportunities with communities that traditionally, is not a sexy topic for a lot of people, let's be honest. So I just want to make sure, I know our student population wants to be involved. There's other people that want to be involved. There's different ages. There's a lot of grandparents who are raising their children in our community, who are going to be impacted by, by some of these changes of these boundaries. So I just want us to be mindful of all that. So if you could answer, sorry, that was a long ranting thing, but if you could answer some of it, that'd be great.
Challenge accepted. So a couple things. So this first survey was designed to get a sense of whether or not people have any idea about the factors in the policy and what we still need to provide more clarity on. Like, it's a pretty dense document, and so this is just the first survey. We also wanted to get a sense of who was answering it in terms of geographic and demographic information. I have learned from my calendar work that you cannot rely on a survey where someone could go in and answer 25 times if they wanted to. We do collect IP addresses, so we can see if they've all been done from the same thing. However, we also know that some people are very mistrustful of technology, and they want someone else to figure out a way to answer it for them so they don't have to. So our intent was to not create barriers with this first survey because it was really for us getting a sense of what people know. There are going to be more surveys throughout the process. And as you said, when we go into those smaller spaces and collect data, that's part of what we are responsible for sharing with you. So while a survey does satisfy a certain audience, it is quantitative data, each one will change as we talk about what we're looking at. We're going to look at options next. So that's a very different survey than, do you know anything about policy? Do you know anything about the 4 factors? And so as we go through this, you'll see an evolution and hopefully an upgrade based on what we've heard from people too, about what that looks like and feels like, because that does matter. We want participation in providing feedback because that's part of the policy that you all expect of us. It's written in there very clearly. And so we have heard some of those concerns, but honestly for us, we didn't want it to be a barrier. We're trying to be very mindful of that. I joke around that my first calendar survey, I had 7,000 students fill it out. And when I filtered, they all wanted to start after Labor Day, end before June 10th, and have a 2-week winter break. Me too, friends. But I was able to take that data and sort of narrow in on, oh, this is, great, and sort of filter it in a way that allows them to give their voice, but also allows us to say from a priorities perspective and a policy perspective, how does that fit in? So you have our promise that that is something that we are well aware of and mindful of and trying to make intentional decisions, and also look for feedback and suggestions along the way with that.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. I was able to attend the meeting at Woodward. I thought it went very well. I wanted to follow up on one of the questions that was sent in at that meeting by our community project team, and that was to get a show of hands from people based on their cluster to give us an idea as to who are we reaching and what kind of venue. And also along with that kind of information, of course, demographic information, the very information you're getting in the survey, but we don't know if those people actually filled out the survey, so we don't know if we're capturing all the touch points. And so I wanted to know, going forward in meetings, are we planning on capturing that information? I can just let you know, way back when, during the boundary analysis, we had clickers to do this, but I don't foresee us having clickers, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, and then I have a follow-up.
Yes, we have talked a lot. As a former math major, we have talked a lot about this. How do you capture all of that data? One of the most interesting ones we've been collecting is with our Ask a Question. We have that information in there as well. So I can tell you where the questions are coming from geographically, demographically, and role, so age, as well as did you attend a session? And so all of that matters. And so I think our goal is to get that information in sort of all of those venues. As you notice, a lot of people who were local to that community came to that venue. And we saw something similar the next night, which is why we don't plan to duplicate venues on purpose, because we do want to go out into places where it is more convenient for people to join. But yes, no, that is definitely something that's on our mind too. And how do we do it in a way that's appropriate, as well as giving us a sense of, well, what do we do next? What's my next task based on what I see?
Such a great way to go about it and learn as we go, and which is something we all try to do. I also just wanted to know how you are using the community project team, who I know had a lot of interest in surveys in general. We have subject matter experts that are volunteering in different capacities. That's one of them. Also, our community engagement advisory committee and it's nice to have those resources, and we actually didn't have to pay for them. So what's your plan on going back to, as we go on to get those inputs?
So yeah, that's a great question. But the community project team members, we wanted to make sure they understood what they're signing up for. So we are going to be meeting with them throughout this process. So it's not just the initial talking about the engagement, talking about helping us plan the engagement, but they will be coming with us along the way, which means we're currently working with the MCPS project team, which is the in-house experts, our transportation, our curriculum, special education, food and nutrition. We're all sitting in a room as we're discussing the data, and so to help the consultant work up the initial options. We do have follow-up meetings in April with the community project team as well. So we're going to be talking to them about getting their input as well throughout this process. So there are meetings. We should have brought that calendar, and we can provide that dates that when we're meeting with the different groups. But yes, this is going to be an iterative process where both the MCPS team as well as the community project team are kind of meeting with us on a regular basis.
And just one little bit of input on communication. As I heard my friend said, they want to be able to go to their grocery store and be able to talk about this. So we should probably think about reaching out to our civic associations, our HOAs, and other community organizations, even though no one's going to agree on this. But it would be nice to be able to get the inputs, all the inputs, so then we can say, hey, yes, we got that input before we made a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mamoon and the team, this is a tremendous big project, and that's why we have several conversations, and we are having more conversation in upcoming board meetings. We have been talking about the community engagement part for a bit now, and I have here a summary of all the feedback that board member has provided, and I want to share them with you. You can take notes, or I can share this paper with you in a bit, but I want to have the clear expectation what we are looking for during this process. In 5 areas, the first one is outreach and community representation. What we are looking for is, you have said it, culturally responsive way of doing this, and also that a plan that clearly cover all impacted regions of our community. And the second part is about accessibility. Okay, you have heard us talk about the format, in-person, virtual, language interpretation, and we also have to make it very clear that language specific. Not just interpretation, but language-specific sessions for our communities. The third area is we are looking for quality. What does that mean? That your goals are very clear, right? So each engagement session that for whether it's your any form of engagement session or the communication you send out, that it clearly indicate why they are receiving this communication. So what is the purpose for this piece of communication or this session of engagement, right? The purpose is, okay. And number 4 area, we are talking about timeline and milestones. I know that we have done this before, right? When can we, what is the sequence of events? When will it be rolled out? When it will be done? So this is clear. Every phase of this is clearly communicated, and also will communicate what's next coming up, right? So people can have it at a glance. And the last one is visibility. We understand how huge endeavor this boundary study is, and it's also have the secondary program analysis combined with it, so that the plan is doable, and we do have set realistic expectations. And I think we talk about it. Not everyone will be happy, but everyone should know about it and have an opportunity to participate in it. So I hope that this is clear. So in May, I look forward to update about what we have done in April and more of the strategy coming forward. All right. With that, we're going to move to the next item, which is a very exciting, long-awaited item about grading and reporting. And we actually have public comment today about this, Dr. Taylor. And I learned a new term, MCPS-MD too.
We're going to change that term. I think that's the goal of today's presentation, and something that our community can measure us on is whether or not we change the definition of that term. So, Madam President, members of the board, it is my pleasure to offer up this presentation today. One of the very first things that was brought to my attention as your new superintendent this year was our expectations for grading and reporting, how they've changed in recent years, and areas in which we could make improvements, so much so that this got a little bit of publicity at the start of this school year. Not the kind of publicity that we welcome all the time, but it did give us an opportunity for reflection and revision. And if anything, this kind of seems to be the theme for today, of reflecting on our practice, making revisions and learning and modeling for our students and for our community that we can get better just a little bit every single day. And we hope that this is an indication to our community of our raised expectations about our commitment to better practices in terms of instruction, and how we might communicate that our student performance in a more meaningful way. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce a couple of folks. With today's presentation, they'll provide an update to changes to our grading and reporting in MCPS. These changes will address concerns raised by multiple stakeholders and are designed to bring greater clarity and higher expectations for student achievement. While we have revised the grading and reporting regulation in recent years, concerns about grade inflation and inconsistency have remained. With today's proposed revisions, we aim to take further steps to ensure that our grading system accurately, or I should say more accurately, reflects student learning. These grading and reporting changes will ensure student performance is measured more accurately and clearly communicated to our parents and to our students, increase student accountability, decrease variance in grading practices across schools and across the county, and center educators in measuring and responding to student performance. At this time, I'll pass things over to our Chief Academic Officer, Nikki Hazel, and to our Chief of Schools, Dr. Peter Moran.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. If we can go to the next slide. I wanted to start by just talking about the purpose of grades. And grades are really intended to be a communication tool to our students and their families around how students are mastering the content they're learning. And grades should hold our students and our teachers and the district accountable for meeting certain learning standards. I know we have a lot of people who are actually very interested in this topic and may be watching. And I just want to clarify for those who may be watching that the board directs a policy for grading and reporting. And the policy is really the big goal or the plan for the district. And in our MCPS grading and reporting policy, the board outlines an expectation for meaningful feedback for student achievement, consistency within schools and among schools so that we reduce variability, that grades accurately reflect student achievement compared to the course expectations, and that grades are communicated in a timely manner. So that's the big goal of the policy. What we're talking about today is the regulation. And the regulations, really the rules for getting to those goals. And so, as has been stated, today we have some significant issues that we have to address around our grading and reporting regulation. There are inconsistencies that we have heard about and we see about how grades are assigned and inconsistencies around how grades are communicated. We also know that there is a lack of alignment between the grades students receive and them actually mastering the content. So we know that that is a huge concern. So we're going to talk about some of the changes that we've already made, how that's going, and then additional changes that we believe are necessary for the regulation to restore the clarity, to ensure that we have high expectations for our students, and to make sure that we are communicating clarity, communicating grades with clarity, consistency, and frequency for our students. So if you go to the next slide, just to give you a little bit of history, as we go back into looking at the changes of grading and reporting over time. In 2008, we implemented the 50% rule, and that still exists today, which states that the lowest grade a student can receive on an assignment is a 50% as long as they make an attempt. And the purpose of that rule was to keep students motivated to continue learning. Oftentimes, if students know they get a 0 or are failing, then they put forth no more effort because they don't see the point. And so it was intended to encourage students to keep trying within their courses. In 2017, we replaced final exams in high schools with district quarterly assessments, and it was actually changed at the policy level that we would implement more district assessments. The change came because stakeholders at that time gave a lot of feedback that we should reduce the testing burden on students, that we should increase the instructional time in the classroom, and eliminate half-day schedules. It was a two-week period of time where students were taking final examinations, 2-hour assessments for each course. And so there was a desire at that time to stop that practice and develop shorter assessments given more often at the marking period level. Then in 2020, there was the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we softened our expectations, and we kind of put aside the regulation and created a guidance document for schools and for families that really softened the language and erred on the side of students, so that there was a lot of flexibility around when students could turn in assignments. We really were not trying to fail students at that time, and it was a temporary guidance document. When students returned back to school, we continued to use that document, particularly in the first year, as we were really focused on meeting social emotional needs of students. Post-pandemic, we have removed that guidance document, but there's now a lot of inconsistency around how grades are given and communicated in schools. And we've done some work to clarify those expectations through our regulation. And if you go to the next slide, you can see, as Dr. Taylor mentioned, that there still has been a lot of concern that we are not doing enough. And there's been a lot of articles really questioning whether or not MCPS is losing its edge in maintaining those high standards. Just going to read a few quotes from students and community members in these articles. Grades keep going up and up, but the standardized tests are way off. Another student said, because the 2-quarter grades are calculated with a generous rounding policy, I absolutely find myself trying hard for good grades the first quarter and taking it easier second quarter. A lot of my friends do the same thing. They just don't care second and fourth quarter if they already have a good grade. Another student said students can get high grades without mastering materials. Another said teachers who teach the exact same class give completely different assignments and the numbers of assignments. It just doesn't seem fair. And then some schools only offer honors courses, yet they are not taught at the honors level. So as you can see, there's just a lot of frustration from students, from our teachers, and from our community. And the variance does exist. If you go to the next slide, please. So we want to share some of the changes that we have put in place either at the district or the state level, and then we will then share with you how that's going. We added the MSDE, Maryland State Department of Education, implemented an end-of-course exam for our incoming 9th grade students last year in biology and government. It counts for 20% of their final semester grade, so that has been added to our regulation. We took advantage, since we were updating the regulation, of providing some clarity around the minimum number of assignments so that there was some consistency, and that minimum number is 9, so that students are getting some feedback in their classes. We did not set a maximum, but we did set a minimum. We also clarified some grading symbols so that when students and families go to look up grades, they are clear about what those symbols mean. We have a Z for missing assignments that simply indicates to a family that it's missing, but they can still turn it in. And then they indicate how much time they have to turn it in. The challenge at this time is it's inconsistent from school to school and class to class around how much time that is for turning in an assignment. And R indicates that something is retake eligible. We also initiated the quarterly district assessments in math and in literacy that count for 10% of a student's grade, and these are marking period assessments. And so, again, we were trying to increase that accountability for our students. Next slide, please. So we really were interested in understanding how those changes were going, and we went to 4 different high schools and also had an opportunity to meet with our student board member and in his leadership group, student leaders. So I do want to thank Dr. Keisha Logan and Sam Ross, a student member who is a student at Blair High School and one of our interns who went out to Richard Montgomery High School, Blair High School, Blake High School, and Seneca Valley High School to get feedback from a variety of students in those schools about how things are going. Overall, I think there was a very consistent theme that students are stressed about grades, and they felt that grades were really more of an exercise and really did not get at whether or not they were mastering content. And they felt that it was more of a compliance matter for teachers, had to follow, and then they had to turn in those assignments. They wanted to see more consistency from class to class when it came to due dates and deadlines. So there was a lot of confusion from them. One teacher might have one due date deadline. It might be immediate, where another teacher may say you have until the end of the marking period to turn something in. They wanted to see those expectations clearly outlined in their syllabi, and they wanted to know early what was eligible for reassessment. They also indicated that it often takes a lot of time for them to get feedback from their teachers around assignments. Sometimes things aren't graded in a timely manner, and therefore they don't always know how they're doing in those classes. And finally, one consistent theme that I don't know why it surprised me, but it did, was that they said they had so many assignments that they were overwhelmed and that they had to prioritize which assignments they were going to do based on the grades they have in their class. So if they're doing well, they may decide not to do the assignment at all because it's not going to impact their grade, and they are going to prioritize, make decisions about where they put their energy for that evening or that week. So that was a very consistent theme. The other piece that I think is really important for us as we're collecting data is to look at how our grading patterns impact attendance. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Moran to talk about the next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hazel. So as we know, schools, families, and central services together have been working strategically to address chronic absenteeism. It's important that we recognize the correlation between grading practices and student attendance. This table demonstrates this connection, showing all high school students who received a C in marking period 1, and an E in marking period 2, and a C in marking period 3, and an E in marking period 4. The first column shows the number of students for the 2022-23 school year, the next the 23-24 school year, and then the current 24-25 school year. As you can see, the average number of absences in quarter 1 and quarter 3 has been between 6 and 7 absences. In quarter 2 and quarter 4, these absences increased to a range of between 13 and 17 absences. While it's important to note that this year they have decreased to its lowest, 13.53%, the question is, why do we see this trend? The trend is the result of a grading practice, where a C and an E equal a D. This means that based on our current grading average, a student could receive a 69.2 in quarter 1, thus receiving a C, and then have the ability to elect to attend classes at their discretion during quarter 2. This is the definition of having low expectations for students. As a result, our charge has been to take this data with the feedback from students and staff and make changes to the regulation for next school year to ensure that grade averages represent higher expectations for both students and staff. Ms. Hazel will now walk you through those proposed changes.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about these next few slides, some additional changes that we are making. First, this issue of variance between grades and test scores. So we want to make sure that we are addressing that. Variance occurs when what a student is learning is not fully aligned to grade level course or expectations. And so we really want to make sure that there is that strong alignment. Our curriculum is aligned to standards, but we need to do a better job of improving how we communicate that in our schools. So we have pacing guides for all of our subjects in our school, and we are aligning those pacing guides to more clearly show what standards are being taught and then what's being assessed in our classes, so that when teachers are using that information for planning, they can have those pacing guides and they can clearly see the standards and the assessment and how they align. We'll also be using those documents to support our professional learning as we move forward. We also know that as we move to working with cross-functional teams, they will be using that information to support the schools as well. Do you want to add?
So while our curriculum is aligned to standards, we recognize the need to improve communication and transparency around that alignment. Like Ms. Hazel shared, to address this, we are enhancing our curriculum, assessments, and pacing guides to more clearly define what standards are taught, and when they are assessed. This clarity will empower our educators to engage in more precise, standards-aligned planning and support leaders in monitoring student progress effectively, especially in relation to targeted focus areas within their schools. This will be through the support of our directors, both in the Division of School Leadership and Improvement and in the Division of Teaching and Learning. How will we provide this support and thus accountability for changes to the grading regulation? We will do this through a clear process for both principals and teacher leaders. Schools will use Summer Leadership Week to unpack the changes to the regulation and ensure that they are aligning their instructional priorities with our approach to assessment and grading and reporting. We will monitor the implementation with principals and support of the cross-functional teams to analyze the distribution of grades and ensure that they reflect the implementation of the policy through analysis of grade books. Another example would be through the observation and planning and the delivery of instruction. A powerful best practice that will be utilized in secondary schools is the use of state-of-department meetings to analyze student achievement through the distribution of grades. Administrators and department leaders collaborate with resource teachers and content specialists to review grade books to identify areas of needed support for our students and, of course, the celebrations of achievement and growth. This summer is going to be key for our resource teacher meeting and the professional learning of all administrators to the level setting their understanding of the changes in the regulation and how we ensure the regulation is implemented with equity and fidelity across all schools. The cross-functional team model brings together experts from curriculum, instruction and assessment, student services, and equity professional learning to collaborate in real time to support our schools. These teams will break down silos, ensuring decisions are cohesive and responsive, and creating shared ownership of student success across MCPS. I know I shared this before at the board table, but MCPS student data is all of our data, and we are responsible for their outcomes. Next slide, please.
The next area that we are going to recommend changing is what we call the mark pattern. This is what was referred to as MCPSing. I think we have an example of our current mark pattern so that you can see how students figure out how they can get the grade that they so desire. So you can see that, for an example, in marking period 1, you can get an A. In marking period 2, you can get a B, and you can end up with an A. So we have this rounding up of the grade. What we are proposing is that we move to a averaging, which is what most school districts do, where we would average the first marking period and second marking period to get your semester grade. And we are recommending that we begin this with our incoming 9th grade students. I will just share that typically when we make changes to anything related to grades, graduation requirements, things of that nature, we typically begin with an incoming class, which is the rationale for why we are recommending grade 9. We also want to recommend that we have return of graded work to students within a timely manner. 10 days is our recommendation that we would like to see for the return of graded work to students. So no more returning kind of at the end of a marking period. Do you want to talk?
A strong culture of accountability starts with ensuring that students are attending school and understand how our high expectations for their success is directly aligned with how they will receive feedback and be graded. We have been closely monitoring absenteeism, and schools have identified patterns early to provide targeted interventions to increase student engagement in school. This helps them track their progress, take ownership of their learning, and stay motivated, all key components of a rigorous and supportive learning environment. We are also examining how our grading and reporting practices can serve as a lever to reduce chronic absenteeism. When students see a clear, consistent connection between attendance, engagement, and their academic progress, it reinforces the importance of their own agency in learning and achievement. If we go to the next slide, please.
So the next area we want to address is defining minimal effort for 50% rule. So at this time, we really want to make sure that we are very clear in providing very clear examples of what constitutes work towards a 50%. Students who turn in just a blank sheet with their name on it, they are writing off topic, they have random answers not related to the assignment, would not earn a 50%, which is what's happening at this time. We want to make sure that we are providing examples for our staff to understand that when students submit work that demonstrates a genuine attempt to engage with the content, they're showing their work, for example, with a math problem, they're writing supporting evidence, they're attempting to answer based on the materials that they received in class, that would, at a minimum, get them a 50% or higher, depending on the work. So our goal is really for our students to demonstrate effort and that they are showing an understanding of the content standards that they were instructed on. Do you want to go to the next slide? Okay. The other thing I want to share, if you can, I'm sorry, go back one slide, is that we also want to address the assessments. We did get rid of final examinations for a reason. However, we have heard a lot of feedback, and I believe you heard Mr. Stein talk about it as well, that a summative assessment would really help capture what students understand for an entire semester. And the summative assessment would also help keep students engaged for the entire semester and not kind of check out during that second or fourth marking period. So we are looking at summative assessments at this time and to really determine exactly like how much weight it should have and things of that nature. So more to come on that summative assessments, but that is something that we are looking to do to increase accountability for our students.
Ms. Hazel, can I just add one thing relative to incentivizing attendance? I think it's important to note that an example around the 50% rule, that it wouldn't apply when a student is supposed to complete or turn in an assignment and has an unexcused absence on that particular day. That's another way that we incentivize attendance within the grading policy.
Can you say that again?
So if a student has an unexcused absence when an assignment is administered, that they would not be eligible to receive the 50%. It would be a 0 because they're not in school and it's unexcused. So if we go to the next slide.
Again, here are some ways that we are looking to decrease the variance that we heard about from many of our students. We want to ensure that we are defining reassessment windows, and we are clearly defining that, and students ask that they receive that information up front about what should be reassessed and when that would occur. So we're going to clearly define that. Due dates and deadlines is another area that we believe we need to tighten up. Again, 10 days we believe is appropriate for due dates and deadlines. So no more assigning an assignment and then allowing students to turn it in. We often hear from teachers who will say kids will turn in 20 assignments at the end of the marking period. That is not appropriate. And it doesn't help provide any understanding around what students have learned. So 10 days is an appropriate amount of time for a due date deadline. We also believe that it is very important for us to be able to communicate the changes widely. Our students asked us, how are you going to ensure that our teachers know about these changes? So training is going to be really important. We want to make sure that we have videos for our families. We're going to be working with our administrators. We're working with our partners with the cross-functional teams to really make sure that people are very clear and that we can reduce the variance. The other thing that I think is important to mention, and I did mention it in one of those quotes, was around our courses and this designation of honors. We are going to be doing an audit of our courses so that we can better understand how many of our schools are giving only honors courses to our students, because we just need to better understand what that is and then reiterate our expectations around grade level courses, honors courses, and make sure that our students are appropriately placed. So that is something else we'll be doing.
So as you heard from Ms. Hazel, we're restoring clarity and rigor to grading and reporting practices. Our focus is on 5 key drivers: accurate performance measurement, clear communication, increased student accountability, reduce variance in grading, and strengthening the leader and educator's role. As we work with our principals, we will continue to support the instructional leaders who will embed revising grading practices into school culture and operations. If we could go to the next slide, please.
So at this time, we will take any comments or questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and this is a long-awaited topic of discussion. And I'm going to go for my colleagues for questions and comment. And colleagues, I know everyone has a lot to share, but limit your question. First round, 1 comment, 1 question, and be brief. be additive, not repetitive. Thank you. I'm going to start from Ms. Stewart.
Okay, start with 1. Okay, I want to go back to averaging. I had looked at different ways of reporting GPAs, different systems. How would this look so I'm just going to give an example. I'm going to go the other way. You got a B first quarter. You got an A second quarter. What would that look like when you average those? A number?
So we're actually looking at percentages. So if 75.6 and then you got an A, with a 92, you would average those two together to get your grade.
Okay, so each quarter will be defined by a percentage, not by a 1, 2, 3, or 4, or by a...
That is our thinking at this time as we're working with our friends in other offices who are helping us think this through. That is our thinking at this time, yes.
Okay, great. I have seen some districts, not many, do this weighting where they actually weight the second and fourth quarter more than the first and third, which is interesting because that means, oh yeah, you're really going to show up because it's weighted. I'm not saying that's the way that we have to go. It's just another way I've seen that be worked out. And also with those summative assignments, maybe having a slice of that. So yes. I look forward to that discussion because I think there's a lot of good ways to do it, and not the way we've been doing it. I agree. It has caused grade inflation. And I see kids make rational choices, actually, based on the system. So they're pretty smart. They'll figure it out. So thank you.
Ms. Rivera-Ovens.
I just want to clap and just almost jump out of my chair because...
Do it.
This has been long overdue. First thing, when I came in, and I sat with a group, I think it was with you, Julie, we went to Wheaton, and I sat on the floor with these kids, and the first thing they told me, we are not being challenged by this grade policy. This is not really helping anymore. Like, we can see it made sense during COVID, but what is going on? So I have to tell you, this is a happy day for me. I'm going to do the happy dance because we were not helping our kids. We were not helping them. We were not getting them ready for college. And so I'm incredibly happy. I'm going to ask my first question, then we'll come around again, right? I do have concerns about schools who only offer honor English, only government. And again, this is an equity issue for me. Not every kid, I mean, even just, I want to be honest, if I would have been told you're going to do honors English, I would have had heart palpitations because, I was learning English. I was like, it's a new system, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes we ourselves disqualify ourselves, which is not a good thing. But if you have the skills, that is great. But if you don't, are we putting kids at a disadvantage? Where then, how does that affect, our absenteeism, our truancy, right? Because then kids are like, I'm not going to go. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't have the basic to be able then to do the rest. So I'm glad you're going to be looking at that because I think it was done by school. There was a lot of independence for each school to kind of implement it. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, is that a good thing? Shouldn't we not have other hands and ears and so on to ensure that, when you have schools that have a very diverse populations with a high IP kids, special education, EML, right? So thank you. It is way overdue. And I'm looking forward to how you're going to do that, how you're going to implement that, and is the training going to be mandatory? I think that's my main question.
We're going to have to make it work together, to work with our administrators and teacher leaders to make it mandatory to understand the changes that are taking place.
You are.
Ms. Silvestri?
Yes, thank you. Very excited about this work. I think all these decisions were made with the best intentions in mind for our children. And just we're in a different place. We know what's working and what's not working. So it's a good time to reset and, again, have high expectations and rigor for our students in every corner of this district. One thing that I've seen sitting on this board is the grades. When we do our evidence of learning, we have our grades are in green and yellow. Our assessments and external measures are in red. So I hear you talk about standards-aligned planning so that our teachers are teaching to the standard in a better way, so that our grades are more reflective of our external measures, which we want them to be close at least. Can you help me understand what needs to happen for that to take place, so that our teachers have the planning to be able to do that better, and that they are teaching to the standards, so that we can ensure that our students are learning what they're supposed to be learning, not so much variance from teacher to teacher?
Yes, I think a few things are really critical. The planning is really critical in understanding what the standards are asking our students to know and be able to do. And, we hear, and I think even today you might have heard, sometimes teachers will say, it's too complicated, it's too hard. But it actually might be at the grade level standard. And so then we have to work with our teachers to understand how we get students who may not be performing at the grade level standard to access that grade level content. And that is the work that we do with cross-functional teams and other teacher leaders to get teachers to understand what the standard is asking and how we get students to access that information. And then with this pacing guide, to be able to really align and understand this is what the assessment is going to assess in terms of standards. This is what needs to be taught. These are the critical standards that need to be taught during this time so that students can demonstrate mastery. And so it's really focusing in a little bit more on those standards that will be assessed. I don't know if you want to add to that.
I would just add that one thing that we've noticed in terms of our MCAP performance, if you look at the grading practices at the middle school level or at the high school level, the sequence in which we teach things also makes a big difference. And looking at grading and assessing students on specific standards that are going to be on the MCAP assessment prior to it being taken. So ensuring that sequence is aligned in that manner as well, so that those standards, because there are times where we haven't been as focused and we've actually taught things that are on the MCAP assessment after the MCAP assessment is administered. So that map and ensuring that we have it and that we're grading students on that specific standard and providing them with timely feedback, we believe we'll also see significant increases in MCAP performance.
Yeah, I just think that this is the work of the system to get our students to really truly have rigor, right? We heard testimony today about some challenges with implementing the curriculum, so we have to provide the support so our teachers can do what they need to do in a classroom full of children with very different learning styles and levels. So this is the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Mrs. Zimmerman.
Thank you. And thank you for a really great presentation. I really appreciated that in it, on certain slides, that you put the key takeaways. I think that's really helpful when looking at data, all of that. I have many questions, but I know only one. My first, I'm wondering, is the minimum of 9 assignments, is that applied just to our core courses or all of our courses? I can imagine that's, about 1 assignment a week, and that throughout, spaced throughout the quarter, I can imagine that some courses that would work very well and other courses that wouldn't be conducive to that model.
So this is for secondary.
Correct.
So we are expecting that to be for all of our courses. Elementary, that would be very more challenging for like specials and things of that nature. But at high school, we are expecting that there be some consistent, and it doesn't have to be a major assignment, but even just some checking in with students periodically, checking for understanding. We do expect there to be a minimum of 9.
Okay, so not just core courses across every course at the secondary level.
Correct.
Mr. Savant.
Yes, I want to start off by saying thank you guys so much for the hard work that you guys do here. I know, for a lot of students, this can be very, anxiety inducing, right, to talk about changing grades. I think, the changing grading policy, but I think coming out and, speaking to some students and hearing the concerns really did make a big impact, and I'm glad that we got to walk away from that conversation. I have a lot of notes, a lot of things, a lot of questions to say, a lot of things to ask, but I'll start with one. I really appreciated the inclusion of on slide 6 when we talked about prioritization of the most impactful assignments, because I think this gets to a point that we actually have some sort of conflicting sort of sentiments within our own grading policy, right? We're talking about the standardization of 9 assignments per class per quarter, and then we're also seeing students who are saying, well, we have to prioritize, right? If I'm talking about 9 assignments a quarter times 7 classes, and many classes, I've had classes where I'm given, more than that, well above that, upwards of 15 assignments in a class. What does that mean about the prioritization of the assignments? And so now we get a better insight into why students are, utilizing the systems that we've created in certain ways, right? In terms of, when we talk about like the 50% rule. I'm completely on board with the 50% rule. Students should not get 50% for work that they didn't turn in. Genuine try makes complete sense to me. But again, I think that the biggest thing to me is prioritizing the actual teaching of the standard, the mastery of the standard, as a way to really tell the what the grade is, right? So if I think the big thing for me would be reevaluating that 9 assignment minimum, because what does an assignment minimum really do for us? If it's supposed to give us more feedback on our work, I'll tell you as a student, and I think any other student will tell you, it does not do that. And I also don't believe that the return period will do the same thing, because it really matters what the content of the assignment is. How am I getting that reteaching, relearning aspect? And so I'll leave it there for now, because I want to give time to my fellow board members, but I do have more to say, and so I'll come back around on the second time.
All right, I already jumped out of my chair, so thank you for the presentation. I'm excited. However, there are certain areas we're making a lot of improvement with this, tightening a lot of areas, like the feedback time, 10 days, that is fabulous. Now, but one area I want to push us a little bit further. One area we talk about changing this grade for 9th grade only, moving forward. Now, as I recall, in 2017, when we changed this grading, we did a whole system, every grade, all at once. And today, you have stated very clearly how this is impacting our students, lowering the rigor, not helping our students make good choices. Yet, we want to continue have the students who are currently 9th graders to continue this pattern for another 3 years. I have a difficult time understanding that, because what I'm looking at is creating good work ethics, help students make good choices, provide parameters for them to do so. Students take new courses each year, and every year in every class, their teacher tells them the expectation in that class. Don't underestimate our students' ability to meet expectations and adjust to changes. And one of those things is that in terms of, in a practical sense, today we heard testimony. Oftentimes, we have multiple grade level of students in one class. I'm taking environmental science. That's open to 9th to 12th graders. are you going to grade each student differently? Calculate their grades differently? So I think these are the things to consider, and I will ask you to further discuss. We're going to do the second round. Ms. Stewart.
So I wanted to talk about going on with our student member of the board on that subject of kids that need to prioritize assignments because they just have so much to do. Especially, I noticed, I don't know if this is everyone, but my kid in 11th grade, an IB student, a lot of those higher level classes now, 7 very difficult classes. And there were times as a mom that I had to try to encourage him to prioritize because he wasn't getting sleep. And I understand the more sleep deprived you are, the lower your output is, right? And so you get into this cycle of no sleep. And then now, you know, this is a kid that wanted to do every single one of his assignments perfectly. And I had to say, okay, let's sit down and think and prioritize so you can get some sleep. So these are the kinds of choices I know some kids make. And maybe it's more prevalent than I thought. You know, maybe I thought that was, oh, that's just my kid. But according to you, it might not be just my kid, right? So let's maybe talk about right sizing. And I'm not saying to have a maximum, but I am saying that we need to have some of these conversations. It's also a mental health issue. And so talking about the anxiety of this all changing, that's also going to add pressure to kids. So yeah, I think that needs to be part of the conversation, which it was today, and I appreciate that. And then I also had the experience of another child that was the one that figured out during COVID that you could turn in all your assignments the last week. Not good for learning, right? So I'm so happy that we have these parameters and with the 10-day rule. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that will actually help our teachers as well as our students. So, you know, we just need to strike that balance, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Rivera-Ovens.
Thank you. And following on my colleague, Ms. Stewart, talking about having had all my kids gone through, and my last child graduated 2020. What is wrong with that about talking about a maximum? I mean, we talk about a minimum assignment because we really don't have, and you guys are the experts, so you can maybe look at English and history and so on and be like, this should be the average, because there were times when I know my kids had to do triage. And I was like, if you have a grade that, you're going to have to, and I know that's part of learning and that's part of growing and so on, but sometimes, what I don't want to do is go the other way, right? There has to be kind of a medium where you want kids to enjoy learning, not just to be memorization or not just, right, but you want them to, at one point, to enjoy learning and to go on and learning. So, and then to Ms. Yang's question, I'm a little bit confused about how do teachers, when you have so many different levels of students in one classroom, how do they do it? Like you can have, like you have an honors English, and then you can have an EML 1 level, an EML 3 level, an EML 2 level, a kid with an IEP. How do they, how do we expect them to be able, to teach every child with those different needs? Or do we also need to kind of look at that as structure and see what is in the best interest of certain students to be able then to have an environment where they can also feel that they're achieving and not kind of feeling left behind. And also the burden that is put on the teacher, right? Because you don't want to, as a teacher, you don't want to leave anybody behind either. So can you help me out with that?
I think so. The first thing I would say, and because everyone's utilized the word assignment, and Mr. Saverna and I had had the opportunity to have a conversation around just the definition and understanding of the word assignment. And I say that to say you can find out if a student has mastered a standard not on this excessive assignment, but on something very simplistic that could qualify as an assignment. It essentially could be a checking for understanding, as Ms. Hazel said. So the idea that you have to put students through a very extensive assignment, written assessment to get to if they understand or are at the mastery level of a standard is something that I think we need to break culturally and redefine what an assignment means. Because I think a lot of times if there are any students listening, they hear 9 assignments and they're thinking, good Lord, that could be 9 written, essays, research, and that doesn't define what an assignment is. So I think we need to do work around ensuring that we have a common understanding of the word assignment, so that it's getting to the point of being able to assess the student and then also just provide them with the feedback that you're intending to provide them with.
And with the different levels of students in one classroom?
And that is the work of the planning. It is really looking at the instructional cycle. It's using that informal data to make decisions about what we do for students and how we take an assignment, take a lesson, and adapt it to meet all of the different needs that are in the classroom. So
yeah,
that's the work.
And I'll add to that. There are some things that are structural and some things that are inherent to just the American education system. When we choose to have a general level course and an honors course in the same classroom, that's a choice. We're making a conscious choice for there to be differentiated instruction to meet one group of learners here and another group of learners over here, and balancing those needs. Another feature is we teach every child who comes through the front door. This is actually an American, uniquely American thing. Not every country does this. And they do not do it in the manner that we do it, where we do have the expectation that students who are scheduled and zoned to attend a certain school, that when they arrive, we try to meet their needs in classrooms in the least restrictive environment possible. And that often means that students with disabilities or students with language needs are in the same classroom with students who don't have those similar needs for different support structures. That being said, it really enriches our learning environment. It makes our experience unique and special, and it is difficult. And this is why not everybody can teach. It is hard work to be a teacher. They have so much that they have to balance. And you'll hear a term that we use an awful lot, and this is a great opportunity to share this with our public, especially during budget season, how hard it is to be an educator. The amount of scaffolding that our teachers have to do to meet different learner needs at different spaces. They often are creating multiple lesson plans for the same lesson so that they meet student needs. And that is part of the expectation.
Ms. Silvestri. And inviting them to come before school or after school to recover things that may not be getting during this class day. I wanted to ask about the summative assessment versus the final exam. Is the summative assessment just for the semester, or is it for the whole year? That's my first part of the question.
It would be for the semester. It's similar to a final exam concept that you are assessing for the learning for the whole semester. But what we want to make sure we don't fall in the trap of is maybe 2-hour-long assessment, shutting down the school for 2 weeks, or having half days for 2 weeks. So That is what we're trying to avoid. So we have to figure out how we can assess what students have learned for a whole semester without going back to some of those old practices. And that's what we're trying to work through the logistics
Were the
of.
old finals semester long also, or were they year long?
Semester.
Just to add to that, Ms. Silvestri, I think one of the other things to connect this to attendance too is that if it's an incentive for me then to also be present all the time, quarter 2, quarter 4, right? Because if there's a summative assessment that's semester based, I can't miss, a significant number of days in any quarter because I'll miss the content and won't be prepared for that assessment.
Okay, thank you. I have more questions.
Yeah. Ms. Zimmerman.
Thank you. I also want to echo Ms. Yang's concerns about our students that are already in high school and that these practices won't be applied to them. You showed us data that the structure is failing a lot of our students, and I would hate to think we'd continue with a failing structure. I want to elevate that, grades are communication. It's a great way that we communicate how our students are doing. And we all hear feedback that communication isn't always clear. So I'd encourage us to also look at the actual visual representation of our grades. If we could break it down further into what standards and what parts that our students are successful and where they still have room to grow, I think that would really help communicate to our students what specific skills that they still need to work on. And it would also help communicate that to our families. It's a lot easier to understand that a student might need some assistance in technical or research writing versus responding to a text that then we can help our students better and they know where they still need to grow. Thank you.
Mr. Savano.
Thank you. I'm going to echo the sentence of my colleagues, especially with regards to communication. Communication is so important to making sure students understand this process, understand what's changing, who it's changing for. I've had a ton of questions, right? Even as soon as this meeting started with regards to grading and reporting about, who is going to be affected by this grading and reporting change. So just want to, elevate that. And then I wanted to go back to, again, the idea of consistency and standardization one more time. We have a policy in place and we say it's not working, but as students will tell you, the policy right now isn't even implemented consistently, right? I know when I was at Richard Montgomery, I had finals, right? Not for the entire year, but I had summative assessments in which I had an assignment that was worth 20% of my grade in one quarter, right? And it was a 2-day assessment and they called it a summative assessment. So what are we doing to make sure, and what are the terms of the courses of recourse for students, right? Even in terms of accountability to making sure that the grading policy that we set into motion will actually be followed, right? I'll give you one more example. I've had teachers who have, so there's a rule within our grading policy that no assignment can be worth more than 24% of your grade, right? I've had teachers who have, or classes where it has been where I've had assignments that were worth more than 24% of my grade, or I've had times in which extra credit was offered on different assignments, or there's all these different things that in relation to the policy that. What was the sort of recourse for students to making sure that the policy that we set into place is actually being followed? Because if it's supposed to be in the best interest of the students, how do we make sure that it's actually being followed on that side?
So I would first go back to Ms. Rivera Oven's question around first training sessions, and the answer is, and we haven't used this word as much as we need to, and it's mandatory. So first off, mandatory training ensures that every single person receives the same message at the same time and has a clear understanding of what the expectations are. I don't think that we've been strong on that in terms of the having the level of expectations that we need to have for our staff, our principals, the people that are responsible for ensuring that a grading regulation is done with fidelity. So that I think is the first step. The other component I think that is key is that and I know we've talked a little bit about cross-functional teams, but by cross-functional teams, you've essentially shrunk a extremely large school system into a team of people working with a set of between 10 and 18 schools every day, same people. And so those people working with resource teachers, content specialists, principals, and messaging that and examining their practices in planning, examining their practices in school improvement reviews, looking at, I could print out a grade distribution report and look at a department and look at the variance in grading, and it tells a story when you look at a department like that. You look at who's adhering to the grading policy, you can see the number of assessments, and it's a window into having a much larger conversation that is an accountability conversation. So I think that those two things are key. And then the other component is that working side by side with Ms. Hazel and her team. The two of us will be working more closely together than I would say, curriculum and schools have ever worked together. So ensuring that our directors have a clear understanding of not only the number of assessments, but the quality of assessment. So I think that the accountability measures to ensure that there isn't variance will be as intensive as they have been in many, many years. I think you see the variance, right? Because the accountability has not been as strong as it needs to be. And there's been a lot of things left up to interpretation. And I would use, Dr. Taylor came in and talked about a connected autonomy. And I think this is a perfect example of connected autonomy. We've allowed people to interpret things on paper and make decisions in different places, and there hasn't been a clear standard with clear communication. And now there will be, and there won't be this misinterpretation of one place, one class, one department versus another.
Okay, I have a follow-up to that, but I'm making sure that my fellow board members get their fair share of time.
Appreciate that very much. I have a question. Over the years, we have heard students and teachers and parents say, there's inconsistency in the retake or makeup windows of different subjects or among different schools. Is that being addressed this time? And if it is, can you remind me how we are addressing that?
Yeah, so we are addressing it. That is one of the changes or upgrades that we want to make, is that we are going to set clear expectations around what can be reassessed and what the window is. So that will be stated clearly, and as our students ask, that it even be included in their syllabus. They want to know what the expectations are very early on. So that is something we will set.
So would that also, do we also have an expectation? Because if I look at other school districts, some school district retake can only be worth up to 75%, up to 80% or whatever. So are we also going to consider those measures, or that is not in consideration?
Certainly can consider it. I don't have an answer for you about the percentage, but certainly that can be up for discussion, absolutely.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go to Ms. Stewart.
I wanted to talk about the thing I hear about a lot from parents, and they still reach out to me about grades not being updated. But I think I've also heard about some technology issues from teachers too. And so if we're going to have this 10-day requirement, we need to make sure, is everyone trained? Is everything working the way it should be working? We need a lot of feedback on that. I can't tell you how much stress it has caused parents, especially parents with kids with ADHD and other regulatory issues, because they said, no, I know, I turned this in. And eventually, you just have to believe your kid. And then you find out, well, maybe it didn't get turned in, or yes, it did, but it didn't hit the grade book. It didn't hit where the parent sees it, right? So how are we making sure as we implement this that that requirement is met in a way that everyone's prepared for?
So that's a great question. So we are also working very closely with the folks who operate Synergy and all of those systems for communicating grades. So they are working right alongside us as we are figuring this out. And they're very clear about any changes that we're going to be making to mark pattern, and if there are issues with teachers inputting grades and it not showing up, that's something that we can elevate to them. But it's multiple offices working on this grading and reporting policy, so we can work on improving that as well.
That's great, because if that actually gets fixed, I can't tell you how much it will relieve stress and also improve performance, because knowing where you are it's just that information coming back so important. Thanks.
Ms. Silvestri.
What would be the harm of changing the grading policy to the average for everyone all at one time versus starting with the 9th grade cohort? What's the harm?
I think just so if I take incoming senior for next year, and we have students who are in the process of applying for lots of things, colleges and in different programs, there could be potentially a dip, and it would require an explanation from really the district to be able to explain potentially why there is a dip with grades and why we are making a sudden shift. Typically, when we make changes to any type of structure, whether it be state mandating an assessment, anything related to changing graduation requirements, anything of that nature, we usually just start with an incoming class of 9th graders, and we are essentially handing them their kind of playbook to say that this is what are the expectations for you throughout your high school career. So we would be changing the rules midway for students, and it could have a significant impact on students and their grade point average. And that could, really trying to figure out what the impact would be as we're doing it. It could potentially be very challenging for students.
When we went to the current system, did we roll it out starting with the incoming 9th graders?
I don't know.
No, I don't think we did.
I don't know. But the current system also favors the student. And typically, even when states make changes, that's why they typically say if they do make a change for a grade level that's beyond 9th grade, they will say you're just going to sit for it. So it doesn't negatively impact the student. So I just think we need to be thoughtful about what are the consequences of doing that for students.
Dr. Moran?
It was universally adopted when we rolled it out.
Thank you.
Mr. Savannah.
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to again speak really quickly to sort of the idea behind reteach, reassessment, and all the work that's being done there. I know within our own policy, right? So I mean, we're talking about grading policy, but it's policy with small p, right? We're talking about the grading and reporting regulation that is governed by our board policy. I know within our board policy, when we're referring to our grading and reporting and our standards on reteach and reassessment, the idea is a grade should be a reflection of the mastery of the standards, correct? And so if we're talking about the reteach and reassessment, if a student is being able to show that they've mastered that standard through a reteach or reassessment, I think personally, right? I believe that you should have the grade that reflects that mastery of that standard. And I mean, going back to sort of this idea of reteach and reassessment. Again, speaking as a student within schools who's had opportunities to reteach and reassess, oftentimes I'll maybe have one reassessment opportunity a quarter, maybe two, right? And that's it. And if we're talking about assignments, right, and kind of going back to a more like looser definition where assignments are really just like the hard sort of grueling work, I might have like 13 assignments that quarter, right? So where's the opportunity as a student to show that you have gone beyond and you have mastered this concept past the first initial teaching? I think that is a really big thing for me. That's something I would want to see reflected in this policy. If we are talking about grading as a reflection of the mastery of standards, I think reteach and reassessment really has to be something that we put a large emphasis and a large focus on, to show that, students, this is not meant to punish you, right? It's not meant to say, we are just trying to get stricter with grades. It is meant to say that your grades should reflect what your mastery of the standard is. And if you are able to show that mastery of the standard through a reteach or reassessment, we should be able to reflect that. So, an arbitrary designation of, just how many assignments that we're allowing to be reteached or reassessed, like what service is that really doing to our students, right? Are we really just saying, you can only reteach or reassess this many assignments, so that's the amount that you can relearn, or that's the amount that you can show mastery standards for? So that's kind of the question I had. Or I guess that's more of a comment, but that's something I would want to see a little bit more on. And I have more comments. Again, I'm going to pass it back to my board to make sure that we're letting everyone get a fair shot.
Ms. Rivera-Ovens.
So I've been listening, and I'm trying to understand why we cannot roll this with all the kids next year. I'm gonna tell you, if I was a parent, if I had kids right now in school, and there was a time I had, I would have had a 9th grader, 11th grader, and trying to be like, oh no, you don't have to do your homework, but guess what, you do. I'm just, what is the message that we're giving our kids, I guess, as a system, right? So here's my take. Either we do it all. But this little, by little, it's just not sitting well with me. I'm just going to be honest with you.
We can certainly go back and revisit that. We received the feedback. Absolutely,
Can we? It might be a little bit more work for the system. It might be a little bit, but I'm not an expert. I don't think it is. I want the message to be clear for every high schooler that starts next year. This is our grading policy. This is what we expect from day one. And this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to roll it. Here it is. I want to know also the engagement of parents, how we're going to let parents know so they have plenty of time to prepare, to ask the questions, right? That's what I'm looking for. If we can do that, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. And I see Ms. Montoya online. Ms. Montoya, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you so much for understanding, everyone. Sorry for the background. I just walked through the door. I've been watching online the whole time, so I appreciate the presentation, and again, the slides are great. I had to jump on because I'm really concerned about the unfairness of this policy that we've been employing in our schools. And I'm concerned about the unfairness that I feel like will occur if we allow basically certain grades of students currently there to be basically grandfathered in to this old policy. So to be quite frank, it sounds like basically we were allowing students to earn, well, they weren't earning them, that's the point, right? They were getting marks that they didn't necessarily earn. Now that's not for all of our students, but some certainly were based on the way that grades were calculated, like if you got the B and then the D, right, in terms of what you could get. Now, my concern then is that in an attempt, it sounds to me like, well, we don't want to be unfair to these maybe 10th, 11th, and 12th graders now by having them adopt this more accurate grading policy. But there was an unfairness to begin with. So we're allowing those same students to basically still potentially get grades they didn't earn. And then in the name of fairness, we're not going to correct the unfairness. So I just get really concerned about that, not to mention just the logistical challenges mentioned by Mr. Stein and several of my colleagues about having classes where the students are receiving different grading policies and basically algorithms, and the complications that I believe would occur for our staff, right? If there's a staff member with 30 students in a math class, for example, and the students, some might be ninth graders because they've been taking accelerated math in middle school and elementary, some might be in 12th grade, et cetera, then that's also one additional thing we're asking our teachers to do is to keep track of that and then implement different grading policies dependent on the student. There's so many students, so many staff, there's bound to be errors also, which then we're going to have to go back and correct. So I'm just really concerned about this idea that we would allow some students to continue unfairly, perhaps earning grades that are not a true reflection of what they've mastered. Thanks.
Thank you. Colleagues, we have gone 3 rounds or 4 rounds. I'm going to go for the last round. So, and if you have further questions, feel free to follow up through emails. Ms. Stewart, last question.
Okay. This was going to be my last question anyway.
Good.
I will also follow instructions. So summative requirements, by the way, big fan of the semester test because that gets you ready if you're going to go on to college to have the practice, because it's, it can be a big, splash of cold water to all of a sudden have to study over a couple months worth of learning. So, and it also shows that they've learned, because a lot of these classes build, right? Especially math. So important to have those check-ins, and it's great to have it, I think, at the end of the semester. But that also brings us back to the theme here of how can you have that for only part of your math class, right? So everyone's going to take that test. And then how does that get calculated in for some of the students and not others? So I think this, in my opinion, strengthens the argument that maybe we should just rip the Band-Aid off. Anyway, thank you.
Mrs. Zimmerman?
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just have a comment, and it's a tip of my hat or a congrats or great job. Ms. Hazel, you've been up here presenting and fielding questions for like 2 hours. You've done great. Just want to shout you out for that.
We declare Miss Hazel Day today. Nikki.
Thank you.
Mr. Silva.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to hit my final points. I just want to say, in terms of the implementation of this policy for like all at once, I want to push back on that as a student, right? If you had told me as a junior going into my senior year that you were going to be changing the entire regulation on which my grades are sitting, right? In my junior into senior year, it's like you're changing the rules in the middle of the game. Right? I'm applying to colleges, I'm applying to internships, and the idea that I have to now explain what is likely to be perceived as a drop in grades because of something that MCPS has mismanaged, it seems supremely unfair to me. And that's something I will say from the beginning to the end. It's just, you don't get to correct unfairness by changing the game, by changing the regulation in the middle of the game. Okay, and then going back to some of my other points, going again back to the idea of consistency and standardization, I think this idea of rubrics and standards and syllabuses is something that's really, really important to me, and I know it's important to a lot of other students. If I go into a class, right, I should really have the same syllabus if it's the same course code, no matter what school I'm at, no matter which teacher I have, right? I should know what assignments I will have to do in that class. What is the standards on which I'm being graded, the standards I'm being expected to master, right, to get the grade that I want to receive in that class, right? I think that is really, really important. And so I think it's also the idea of how the implementation of this policy is going to be key. And I think this is another reason why it is supremely unfair to try and change the rules in the middle of the game by changing the regulation for all students all at once. Right, to try and have this implementation in an untested manner with really untested policies all at once for students who, honestly, it will affect the rest of their lives, right? I mean, we don't want to think of grades as affecting the rest of your lives, but it will affect the college you go to, it will affect the internships you get, it will affect the scholarships you get, and so to do all of that without really saying, these are the changes and the standardizations we're going to make, I think is extremely unfair, right? I mean, I just have to say it as a student. And then again, the idea that we are going to practice perfect implementation on the first run is something, I don't know like what we can expect out of that if we're saying, we are going to be perfect with this the first time around. But if we're not, oh, too bad, so sad for our students who are going into college now, right? Or who have to apply with these grades. I think that is a massive oversight. And then finally, in regards to the different calculations of grades, I think you can with regards to the scaling of the grades in terms of A's and B's and all of those things. It really is just as simple as what algorithm do you plug into the back of the computer. It does not have to affect the in classroom teaching, as far as I know, right? If I'm wrong, please correct me on that. But
no, you are correct. In working with our folks in Synergy, it will not be up to the teacher to determine what student gets what type of grade. The algorithm will determine that. So they will work all of that behind the scenes. So that is correct. And we hear both arguments, and it is something that we'll go back and determine. But we do want to be cautious about overcorrecting to the point where we see a dramatic change. So we have to think about what it means when we have now these summatives, what it means if we start assigning percentages to grades, what it means when we start changing the mark pattern all at once for students. And so those are all the considerations that we have to take in place at this time.
Thank you. I just want to say again, thank you so much for the work. I appreciate your outreach to students through this entire process. I know it has been very, very informative to everyone in the community just to understand what are the changes that are being thought about, what are the changes that are being potentially going to be made. And again, I can't stress this enough. The implementation is the most important aspect of the regulation, the policy, whatever it is, right? Policy, small p, right? But it really will have the dramatic impact. We had a regulation that should have done right by our students, but the implementation was really poor to the point at which it was no longer doing right by our students, right? So
Thank you.
Having that standardization is so important to me. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera-Ovens, then I will go to Ms. Montoya. Ms. Rivera-Ovens.
Thank you. I appreciate the sentiments of our student board member. However, I'd like to remind him that these were during a pandemic. These were very, unseen circumstances, right? That we did the best we could under those circumstances, because honestly, none of us in our lifetime had lived through a pandemic before. But that being said, I feel a great responsibility to our students if we do not change it for everyone now. I think it would be irresponsible on our part not to do it. I think it would be neglectful. And as you know, Mr. Purnell said, it's based on what you know, what you learn, your hard work, and so on. So to continue on a path where we're not going to recognize that, to say for some students, okay, so we'll give you, that is not the way life works. That is not how, that's not the kind of teaching I think, we reflect in MCPS. We want to challenge our students. We wanted to make sure, that we have those expectations. So for me to continue in that trajectory of, okay, let's just start in a couple of years, okay, and then let's give everybody a better pass. That to me feels like I am not doing my job as a board member and as somebody who took an oath to do what's in the best interest of all the students in this county. So for me, I'm going to push back respectfully and with much love, as he knows. But to say that, I have been on this earth a little bit longer, and, You know, life doesn't always gives you fairness or equity in everywhere you go. And sometimes we have to rise a little bit higher and work a little bit harder. And that is okay, folks. That is okay. So that's where I stand with this. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Peter, for being here. This is like a congressional hearing. It went on forever. I just,
all right.
But I just, but I just want to say thank you for your hard work, and I really look forward. I really look forward to moving in a new era where we truly challenge our kids to do their best, but we also support them to make sure that, we give them the tools and the teachers so that our kids, all of our kids, from the different levels of learning can actually achieve their best potential.
Ms. Matoya.
Thank you so much. So I do want to acknowledge Mr. Severino's perspective as a current student, and I do think it's really important to hear. I think I have to agree with my colleague, Mr. Rivera-Oven, though, both as a board member, as someone who has gone through high school and college and various graduate schools. The grading policy that I see being proposed is what I think most of us are probably used to, right? A lot of us grew up with, you get the points, they average them together, and that's your grade. And I haven't really I was surprised when I learned about MCPS's grading policy with the big rubric of various letters and how you could still somehow get below a 70, but it's still a C and all of these various things. And I think that I don't view this as changing the game in the middle of it for some of our students. If we were saying, okay, this is November and everybody, when you come back in January after winter break, this is the new grading policy, I would absolutely agree. That is not okay. But what we're asking our students to do is say at the beginning of the new school year, right, where you have ample notice, we're actually just asking you to earn the grades that you get, right? For a lot of our students, it might not be a problem. They're not missing school in the second and fourth quarters because they know they can still get the whatever, right? So we're just saying now you have to earn the actual grade that you get. There's no more leeway here, right? You can't game the system anymore, because the reality is that we do our students a disservice. We send them into college unprepared. And I know, because I hear from parents of students who have recently graduated saying, these kids are not prepared. My kid's not prepared. I hear from college professors saying these kids are not prepared. We see it in the news. Harvard's offering remedial math classes because the kids are not prepared. So it might seem like we're doing kind of a mean thing to these students by saying, hey, you actually have to show up now and do the work. But what we were doing a mean thing by telling them that they didn't have to and they could still earn the grade, and then devaluing the earned marks of those students who did show up, who did do the work, who did put in the effort. So I have to respectfully disagree that we're somehow, changing the game for these students. If there's a dip in their grades, it's because they've chosen not to actually do the work, right? They think they're on the old grading system where they can just kind of wing it in the second and fourth quarters. So I would really like to see this rolled out for everyone, to get everyone back to where they are so we can have true reflections of their mastery and send them to the next grade level, whatever that may be, actually prepared. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for this very lively discussion. And now...
Board Member Yang, may I ask for right of reply?
We are not doing a debate.
Right of reply exists within our board handbook for if I'm addressed directly within the comments to have a final.
I really appreciate our students advocating on their behalf. So make an exception that you may reply, but this is an exception.
Thank you. I just want to say, I completely understand the points about fairness and unfairness and all of these things. All I have to say is that as a student, right, if you told me I'm applying to colleges right now, and you're going to change the entire metric on which I'm being graded within my school because you think, oh, we have been giving you guys a break for far too long, I fail to see the merit in that as to how that will actually prepare our students, right? If we've been doing them a disservice for 4 years, right, and we're saying, we're going to change all of that with 1 year worth of grading, but also in that sort of 1 year, we're also going to ruin your chances at college, ruin your chances at an internship, ruin your chances at scholarships because of the grading that you're getting out of this. I again still fail to see the merit in how we're actually preparing our students, right? You can, like I said before, you cannot correct unfairness with a change in the middle, and it really is a change in the middle of the game. You will put the burden on counselors, teachers, parents, administrators to try and explain this out now to colleges and why this entire grading system has changed. And so with that, I'll leave it there. But again, I just wanted to thank you all for your time and the work that you've done here today.
Thank you so much. Are we expecting these new things will go into implementation next school year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. With that, we're going to move on to the next item, which is item 9, item of information. Ooh. Okay, these are the legal fees report, and there's no action for the board to take at this time. All right, so I'm going to go to the item number 10. It's Board of Education item. May I have a motion to approve item 10.1 and 10.2 in block?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous with all present virtually and in person. Now I'm going to turn to 10.3. We do have a previously business meeting. However, that is a resolution introduced by Ms. Wolf, and Ms. Wolf is not here today. Procedure-wise, I'm going to ask the staff, procedure-wise, do we need to amend the agenda and take a vote on that, or we are okay to
You
just
can have a
postpone it?
motion to ask it to be held until May 8th.
Yes,
Okay.
so move to table the resolution that's currently on the dais until the May 8th board meeting.
Okay,
Second.
May 8th, or the first board meeting in May.
okay.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous with those present virtually and in person. All right, so then any new business to be introduced? Seeing none, and then we are going to go to a portion of our meeting. The Board of Education recently, I want to talk about recently received an opinion from the Open Meetings Compliance Board dated April 1st, 2025. The Compliance Board found that a violation of the Open Meetings Act occurred during a closed session held on September 26, 2024. Specifically, although the Compliance Board found that a specific contract was not discussed in closed session, it found that a briefing by the superintendent regarding the need to purchase more diesel buses fell outside of the administrative function exception to the Open Meetings Act. The Compliance Board determined that the general need to purchase additional diesel buses fell outside of the scope of the superintendent's delegated duties under the student transportation policy, and therefore did not involve an update on the matter that the Board of Education have delegated to the superintendent. A copy of the Compliance Board's opinion is currently being circulated. Board members, it's going to come down to you to sign in accordance with Section 3-211A2. So we will need to sign this paper right now. Okay. Okay. Ms. Wolf and Ms. Montoya just signed just prior to they leaving the meeting. All right, so that concludes item 10.1 to 10.4. Now we're going to item 11.1. It's an information summary. No actions is required at this time. Then the last item of the day is adjournment. May I have a motion?
I will happily move for adjournment.
I will happily second that.
Okay, all in favor, please happily raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.